The Prime Minister vows to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol ahead of crisis talks in Belfast today.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, the 16th of May. This is Breakfast on GB News with me, Isabel, and Paul Hawkins.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Then the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, flying to Belfast today for crisis talks in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government. He is expected to greenlight legislation that could allow ministers to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol.
The leaders of Finland and Sweden have confirmed their intention to join NATO in a historic policy shift for the Nordic countries. Finland's president said that the move represented a new era opening.
Comes amid reports that Russia has lost a third of its invasion force in Ukraine. The latest assessment by the Ministry of Defence also revealed that the Kremlin's campaign in the east of the country is significantly behind schedule.
The Queen received a standing ovation as she arrived at the Royal Windsor Horse Show last night to watch a performance celebrating the Platinum Jubilee. Her attendance at the event, titled A Gallop Through History, is her second public appearance in 3 days.
You can join in any of our discussions, as ever, by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Or you can tweet us at GB News. And remember, you can also subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories that everyone is talking about. So our top story this morning, Boris Johnson will head to Belfast today for talks with the major Stormont parties in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government.
Yeah, the Democratic Unionist Party is refusing to enter the Assembly over concerns about the Northern Ireland Protocol, which they argue undermines Northern Ireland's position in the UK by putting a trade border in the Irish Sea.
Well, despite signing up to the deal, the Prime Minister is now poised to publish legislation that would override parts of it.
In an article published late last night in the Belfast Telegraph, the PM said that the protocol was out of date, adding our shared objective must be to create the broadest cross-community support for a reformed protocol in 2024.
Well, it comes as the European Union warns of retaliatory measures if the UK acts to unilaterally suspend or change the protocol.
Well, joining us now is the political commentator, John Coulter. John, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us at 6:02. First of all, we know Boris Johnson is heading to Belfast today, and we know that in July 2019, he said that under no circumstances would he allow a border in the Irish Sea, and then 3 months later, we signed an agreement putting a border in the Irish Sea. Do you think that the people of Northern Ireland trust him?
Well, good morning, Isabel. Good morning, Paul. This really is a high-stakes poker game for the Prime Minister, because he's going to have to decide between the protocol that you mentioned there and stabilising the peace process here in Northern Ireland. I think the compromise that he's got to get here is to get a situation that an agreement where all the Northern Ireland parties, particularly the Democratic Unionists, can sign up to get back in and kickstart the Assembly, whilst at the same time preventing a very vicious economic trade war with the European Union. Because the protocol is very, very dangerous to Northern Ireland at the present minute, because we've a number of high-stakes players at the table. Could I sort of make the protocol and this discussion look like the famous blockbuster James Bond movie of 2006, Casino Royale? That's what we're in at the present minute. So the big question is for Boris Johnson, is he James Bond or is he Le Chiffre? Will he come away with a significant deal or will he lose everything? Big players include the Democratic Unionist Party, which, as you clearly state there, will not go into the Assembly unless they get a substantial deal on the protocol. They would prefer it to be scrapped. Then you've got Sinn Féin, the largest political party in Northern Ireland, traditionally the spokespeople for the Provisional IRA. They support the protocol because they see it as the back door to Irish unity. And of course, you've got the European Union. There's a lot in unionism who suspect that the protocol is really the European Union punishing the United Kingdom for daring democratically to vote to leave the EU. And finally, we've got the Irish government. It wants the protocol to work because it is afraid at the next general election in the south of Ireland that it will also, like Northern Ireland, face a Sinn Féin-led government. So those are the big players at this point in time.
OK, those are the big players, but of course the stakes are just so high because democratic process in Northern Ireland has all but ground to a halt, hasn't it? How hopeful are you that the Prime Minister's arrival in Belfast today will shift that, will significantly make normal life begin to resume?
I think the fact that the Prime Minister is actually coming to Northern Ireland rather than using telephone diplomacy shows the seriousness, not just of the situation, but the seriousness with which Boris Johnson takes this crisis. I think really what he's got to actually resolve it, he has really three main options that he can do. He could scrap it completely. Now, that's the very high-risk strategy. In other words, bin everything to do with the protocol and risk that trade war with the European Union. He could politically amputate, as he's threatening to do, substantial sections of it in the hope that that will placate the Democratic Unionists for them to get back into the Assembly and get normal government working here. Or what he could also do is to try and buy himself more time. He could get leading DUP politicians to join the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, such as Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, an experienced parliamentarian and the leader of the Democratic Unionists, to actually go to Brussels and negotiate themselves. Now, that would put the DUP in a real spotlight, because let's not forget what is at stake here really is the peace process. And we don't want to go back to a situation where we have the troubles with the murder and the violence. This is actually the most serious situation which Northern Ireland has faced since the 1994 ceasefires by the terrorist organisations.
Yeah, John, do you honestly believe that there is a solution, a realistic solution that pleases all sides? There's a reason they call this the Irish trilemma, because you can't have a solution that pleases the Unionists, the Nationalists, the UK and the EU. Someone has to lose out. And under the current deal at the moment, it's the Unionists. But if Boris Johnson is to effectively rip up the protocol, then the EU would be the ones losing out there.
Yes, what we've got to look at here, realistically, Paul, is what sections of the protocol can we tear up without provoking the trade war and also getting the DUP back in. So I think really what it is a situation of going through the protocol quite literally, line by line. What can we take out? What can we bin and get away with it? And that, bluntly, is the solution.
OK, listen, we'll leave it there. Dr John Coulter, it's one of those subjects we could talk about for hours and hours. Yeah. But so interesting to get your thoughts this morning, and undoubtedly some developments through the course of the day with the Prime Minister, as you say, arriving in Belfast a little bit later. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, appreciating the James Bond analogy. I enjoyed that. Thank you, John. I'm sure Boris Johnson was appreciating that as well. Look, let's talk now, shall we, about NATO. The leaders of Finland and Sweden have both confirmed that they intend to join the alliance in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, the Swedish Prime Minister, Magdalena Andersson, said joining the alliance was best for Sweden's and the Swedish people's security. Well, it comes as the latest Ministry of Defence briefing reveals that Russia may have lost a third of its forces since the start of the invasion. Well, joining us in the studio now to discuss all of this is Robert Fox. He's the defence editor of the Evening Standard newspaper and a regular to this programme. Good to see you as always. Should we reflect then on what's being described really as a historic development in terms of NATO and the positions of Sweden and Finland yesterday?
Well, it's not exactly breaking news because they've been on the cusp of this for some time. And it really is the provocation of Russia to use a Putinism. Putin's always been provoked by something that's happening in New York, at the UN headquarters, or whatever. But really, Finland, that does have a common border with Russia, and Sweden, they have been probed. They have had raids even over the years into Finland. Incursions of submarines into Swedish territorial waters. And they think that if things are really going to go volcanic should we say, in Eastern Europe, which is now a possibility, particularly if the Russian army breaks up, which is really the breaking news over the weekend. They want to be in a solid organisation where they have a guarantee of protection and aid from the Allies. Boris Johnson made a very shrewd and timely move in signing up the friendship treaties with Sweden and Finland, saying we're here to help before you get in, as you move into the alliance. But things are moving at a very unpredictable pace now in Eastern Europe, and that's why it's very understandable. But gosh, you must commend the dignity of the Finnish and the Swedish leadership in the way that they've announced this in a reasonable way. And in brilliant English.
Yeah, definitely. What's Russia going to do about this? It's called Finland's move to join NATO a mistake. Sweden following them shortly. What can Russia do?
Well, I go back to the nursery here. Big bad wolf. I'm going to huff and I'm going to puff until I blow the house down. You will hear a lot of rhetoric, a lot of noise from Putin, although the noise hasn't been quite as noisy as was expected. I'm not being silly here. Now, they'd expected a big speech threatening the widening war, calling up more troops in the Great Victory Parade last week on the 9th of May, and it didn't come. So there is a suspicion that something is going on, and it shows that in my 70s that I'm a man of our times. I've been following the Twitter feeds and the social media feeds overnight, and it's really quite eye-watering what's coming up now, because those famous pictures, the Telegraph showed them particularly well, I'm sure it came up on your programme, of that failed river crossing, which was a disaster, and apparently there have been 2 more. That's going into social media in Russia now. And the other thing is overnight, a formation, a proper Ukrainian unit has got to the Russian border north of Kharkov. And that really is a big development. What is he going to do now? Yes, he can shout. He may do some really nasty things at Lviv and Odessa. Very important point, where they've already been stealing grain from the great grain silos outside Odessa. It looks a desperate mess now. And really, this is not cosmetic, the arrival of Sweden and Finland. They are very, very important frontline states, because look at the way they organise themselves. That's very crucial, particularly to this country.
Yeah, look, I just want to talk about the Ministry of Defence's assessment of the losses that have been suffered by the Russians, talking about 1/3 of their invasion forces having been lost and progress in the Donbass behind schedule. And you talk about the breaking news being, whether or not the Russian military will break up. I mean, is it survivable? I mean, is Putin facing real problems within his own ranks of the military?
Well, as a defence editor, I benefit from the MOD briefings, and I must say that they're commendably cautious. And over the weekend, they were saying it's fragile, the balance between the forces, because in number, the Russians can put so many more people in the field and so on, and technically, in paper, if you look at all the things, they're more powerful. But they were saying fragile balance at the weekend. But for the Ministry of Defence to actually come forward with this assessment is quite something. To lose between 30 and 40% of what's called your combat power. We've seen all those tanks. They're not using their aircraft. They're not declaring their casualties. They're not allowing a lot of the bodies to get back. There really is something going on, and Putin needs another army. If he's going to hold on even to the Donbass, he needs another army. He needs another 100,000 now. He can call them up. Of course, they've got the availability. But they're untrained, they'll probably be largely conscripts, and they will be under-equipped. He is in a real dilemma now. Very quickly on the Donbass, if you look at the map, we talk about the Donbass, they have got Luhansk, that pocket, but by no means have they got the whole of Donetsk. And where the Ukrainians seem to be holding the line, and I think they made up their mind to do it, is along the Donetsk River. And we had expected from all the declarations, from all the forces in the area, for Russia to have dominated this about 10 days to a fortnight ago. They're nowhere near doing that.
So how long is this going to carry on for then?
It's going to carry on for years, I'm sorry to say. I mean, and I think that this is the thing that, planners for Boris Johnson, and he really is on this, in his National Security Council, the MOD, the support, the training, the logistics, the brainpower, oddly, that the Ukrainians say that they've benefited so much from British and American training. We're going to have a schedule which goes a year to 3 years on this. I don't think Mr. Sunak wants to put up the money for it, but I think that the Allies, and I think what I know of Boris Johnson's instincts is he said, yes, we're not going to break the bank, but we are your allies and we're in this.
And whilst I've got you, a question I never thought I'd ask you or any defence editor for that matter. Eurovision. How much will that have rattled, do you think, President Putin? And also, how much do you think our second place here in the UK was related to Boris Johnson's foreign policy?
Well, we've just been arguing about that in the green room. Of course, it's enormously important. Whether it gets to Putin's ears or not is almost, it's not quite irrelevant, but it gets to Russia. And they will know about this. This is absolutely meat and drink. It will go viral on social media. I'm rather sorry that the Brits didn't vote so solidly for the Ukrainians.
I know.
The Ukrainians
we shot
voted for
ourselves
us
in the foot a bit there, didn't we?
Yes. I blame Mr. Graham Norton and the others.
It was a good song, though, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Is a good song.
But it's absolutely part of the whole thing now. Yeah. Defence editor, of course.
Yeah,
I look at it all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. Was it soft war? Is that what they call
soft
it?
Power.
Soft power.
That's it.
Yeah, but it's soft power with a real razor edge. It is. Yeah. But wait for the Festival of San Remo when it comes out.
All right, we'll get it in the diary, All right, brilliant.
Robert Fox, always lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Good to see you, Robert. Thank you. You are watching GB News Breakfast. Really good to have you with us this morning. It is 17 minutes past 6.
Coming up, we're asking if your youngsters are worried about their upcoming GCSEs. They start from this week. We'll be discussing how you can help them if you're watching and you're facing your GCSEs. We'll be talking about how to stay healthy during this stressful period. But first of all, your Monday morning forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet at times with rain or showers moving northwards across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Well, zooming down to the southwest at lunchtime, and we'll see a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers. The showers possibly could be on the heavy side in places. The southeast will also see a mix of sunny spells and showers. In the sunshine, though, it will be feeling warm and quite humid. The showers may be a little more frequent across Wales, though, with a risk of some heavy and possibly thundery showers around. Moving east into the Midlands, and there'll be more in the way of cloud around this lunchtime, although southern areas will gradually brighten up. Temperatures there will be reaching 18 or 19 Celsius. Skies will also be rather dull across northern England, with some areas of heavy rain around, and it'll also be feeling rather cool in the east, and a breeze comes off the North Sea there. Well, into Scotland, and many parts will have a rather damp lunchtime and some heavy rain in places. It'll feel disappointing for mid-May, with temperatures staying in single figures for some. Northern Ireland, though, will be seeing skies begin to brighten up. However, some further showers will be quickly moving up from the south. Temperatures there more like 15 or 16 Celsius. And the rest of the afternoon will see the brighter skies continue to move northwards, but still with some rain around. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Monday morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. In fact, it's 6:21. Still to come on this morning's programme.
Yeah, it's the London Borough which recently switched its political allegiance. At around 6:45, we'll be on your doorstep in Wandsworth as we chat to residents about the rising costs of living.
Also coming up in an hour's time, it's thought that 1 million people will be living with dementia by 2025. So we're going to be speaking to one of the country's leading experts as Dementia Action Week begins today.
Remember, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing us, gbviews@gbnewsuk, or they can tweet us.
Yeah, at GB News is the best way. And we are the People's Channel. We want to hear from you.
Right, it is 6:21. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening this Monday morning. Boris Johnson holding emergency talks with Northern Ireland's leaders later in a bid to break the Stormont deadlock. The Assembly's been plunged into crisis in the wake of the local elections, with the DUP refusing to join a devolved government. It's in protest over the Northern Ireland Protocol and post-Brexit trading arrangements.
The Home Secretary has permanently lifted restrictions on the police in the use of stop and search powers. Priti Patel has announced the easing of the rules surrounding the tactics, which gives officers the right to search people without reasonable grounds in an area when they expect serious violence.
The Queen received a standing ovation at a star-studded event marking the last day of the Royal Windsor Horse Show last night. Her Majesty smiling broadly as she arrived at an arena close to Windsor Castle. There she is, with the audience spontaneously cheering as she walked to the royal box, and why not?
All of the papers this morning, as you'd expect, featuring pictures of Her Majesty the Queen. And I think after seeing so many recent public engagements cancelled, like the state opening of Parliament and various others, lots of concerns about this episodic mobility that we're told that she's struggling with. So fabulous to see her out and about, and as the papers describe her, looking radiant and so happy. And it bodes well, doesn't it, for the Platinum Jubilee? This is the first of the events to celebrate her 70 years on the throne. And hopefully she'll be this well. It's just, what, two and a half weeks till it all kicks off? Yeah, and as you saw there's a picture of her in the car window. She pulled up. She arrived by Land Rover, Range Rover, whatever it is, and then she walked very tenderly, but she still managed it with the aid of a walking stick to her seat. We were watching on TV, and they were you saw other pictures of what was coming up, so you didn't actually see her make her way up there. So it must have taken a considerable amount of time, but it was still excellent to see her out and about and in what looked like really good health, and she seemed to enjoy it. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And, you know, this is the first of the celebrations. Were you there last night? Were you watching it on the telly? Are you planning to go and see Her Majesty in some form, if you can, over the Platinum Jubilee? Let us know your thoughts. So many people just thrilled to see her looking so well. Really good. Yeah, really good to see her out and about. It is 6:24. Good to have you with us this Monday morning. We're going to talk about exams now, because it is exam season. In fact, GCSEs return and A-levels results return for students for the first time today since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. More than 80% of head teachers have reported that exam stress among students is higher than in pre-pandemic years. Well, as a result of the pandemic, students have been given exam topics ahead of tests, but there will be changes to the grading following higher results in the past 2 years. Well, let's speak now to education consultant Freshta Raper, who joins us now. Very good morning to you. Look, I get a knot in my stomach just thinking about GCSEs and A-levels. I still have sort of recurring dreams every now and then, and I'm in my 30s thinking, I haven't prepared for my maths, and then I'm, oh, thank goodness, it's not happening. But it is horrible. Exams are horrible, whether you're a high-flying student or not. But the fact that people haven't been in exam halls for so long, do you think that's why people are feeling particularly anxious this time around?
I think it's not only the one, it's been the 2 years of loss of learning, which has got a major impact on the anxiety and stress on the children. Of course, as we have to look at something very, very important here. During that 2 years of loss of learning, yes, impacted almost the majority of the student, because we have some high flyer student, and then student, they have support from home, or some student, they have an extra private tuition. But there is one thing missing, the practical. For example, science, there is no practical during those 2 years, and there is a DT, there is a trip for geography, for other subject. These all postponed. That postponed is affecting on the learning of these children. So all these has got a major impact on putting extra anxiety when they didn't have enough practice. And whether we like it or not, during that 2 years, it was a lot of loss of learning. That loss of learning impacted on how we make sure we're gonna cope with this one and cope with the updating the student. For example, there are a lot of strategy has been put in place, but it wasn't as effective so far, because those students that they were mainly affected, the majority of the students from disadvantaged area, those students has got a special learning need, had been affected even more. And after coming back, as you know, the stress is more, because the pandemic, whether we like it or not, has a major impact on personality change, habit change. We had more students, most of the schools, more students that apply for student passport with the SEND department, and the largest number of mental health case has been referred to the school, local authority, and outside as well. These all has impact of that 2 years of isolation, impacting on adding the extra anxiety and stress for the student.
Yeah, so what's your advice then on how to manage that anxiety and stress for children? I know your daughter's taking GCSEs at the moment.
Yes.
And how
my daughter and my son is year 12 as well. My son is doing a UCAS, so both of them, one of the two highest predicted grade they had. They were absolutely amazing. But I can see on a daily, the anxiety is getting more and more and more. My son is so stressed, and he's, for example, predicted A star, A and A, say, Mom, I can't go to university. Is a lot of student is applying. So it's just added to all this. And they know that even during this year, there's been a lot of absence of teachers with the COVID or the other issues. One of the school I was working, like 20 teachers in 1 week were absent. All these supply teacher there wasn't any supply teacher in the area left. They haven't contacted for a supply teacher. In some cases, they had to just before the Easter holiday, the stress was so much on the senior leadership as well. They had to send the whole cohort, the group, for example, year 7, year 8, year 9, a day to send them off and have an online, because there wasn't enough teachers there. But I think my advice for the schools this year was not very organized, but hopefully from next year, they do some early intervention, start very, very early, and they have to do some strategic planning from September, not wait until December or waiting until after Christmas to put some revision class, some support class in place. That was late this year, and that impacted on extra anxiety and stress on the children. If they had a good one from September, it will ease the pressure on the student.
Well, look, the nation is behind all of our youngsters going through their exams. We're thinking of you and your household as well. Fresh to rate, but good to get your thoughts this morning. And I suppose WH Smith will be doing an absolute roaring trade in highlighters and revision cards. Do you remember all of that?
Yes. Protractors and pencil cases, etc.
The work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All the best to you. Let us know your exam coping strategies. How did you get through exam period?
And tips for revision.
Yeah.
Is it best to cram the night before, which was my very unconsidered strategy at the time, or should you do little bits in the...
Yeah, and I used to do a little timetable and make sure I had my break times. My brother and I would try and coordinate those, so we'd go downstairs and mess about in the garden or something for 20 minutes together. But, you've got to have your strategy. It's a horrible, horrible process, but it's got to be done.
Yeah, I'm told it's a good thing to have for exams. I'll remember it for next time. Right, stay with us. We'll be going through today's newspapers with Chris Akabusi and Liz Kershaw. Looking forward to seeing them after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It is 6:33. Let's bring you up to date with the latest headlines. Boris Johnson will hold emergency talks with Northern Ireland's leaders later in a bid to break the Stormont deadlock. The Assembly's been plunged into crisis in the wake of the local elections, with the DUP refusing to join a devolved government. It's in protest over the Northern Ireland Protocol and post-Brexit trading arrangements.
The Queen received a standing ovation at a star-studded event marking the last day of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. Her Majesty smiled broadly. She arrived at Atton Arena, close to Windsor Castle, with the audience spontaneously cheering as she walked to the Royal Box.
A memorial garden could be created at the site of Grenfell Tower, where survivors can remember together. Grenfell Tower Memorial Commission say a garden's the most popular idea when they surveyed survivors, relatives and local residents. The fire engulfed the residential block in West London back in 2017, killing 72 people.
Yeah, very good morning to you. It is just coming up to 25 to 7. We're going to go through the papers now with broadcaster Liz Kershaw and Olympian Chris Akabusi. Welcome, both of you.
Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Good to be with you.
Yeah. Liz, let's start with you, shall we? Most of the papers carrying wonderful pictures of Her Majesty the Queen. And it was a bit touch and go whether or not we'd see her at all at the Royal Windsor Horse Show. What do you make of it all? And more importantly, what does the Mail say about it all?
Well, I think I might get sent to the Tower for this, but and this is
praise of Her Majesty. I think she's a crafty old cove.
Do you?
Yeah.
I've never heard her described like that.
Well, when they said the palace said, "Oh, she's got intermittent or whatever it is,
episodic
mobility," I thought, well, what does that mean? You know, I'm not a medic, but I think I know what it means now, and I think that. You know, as you get older, we were talking about this the other day with friends, you can be more grumpy, more intransigent, and people sort of giggle about it. So I think she's going, that's the max now. She's 96, so she's saying, I'll do what I feel like doing.
State opening in Parliament, no thanks.
Am I going to travel in a gilded coach through this rickety 400-year-old gilded coach through the streets of London, drafty with a blanket over me? No. Am I going to sit in Parliament reading a speech that somebody else has written? No, thanks. Do I want to go and see horses? Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
why not?
Yeah, I'm having a Lazarus moment, you know, I can get up and walk. So and fair play, do I want to wander around the Buckingham Palace lawn in the drizzle, making boring small talk with people? No, so I think... you know, when it comes to Jubilee weekend, she'll be there, and my namesake will be saying, do I really want to sit outside watching Ed Sheeran? Nah. Do I want to stand on the balcony and take the adoration of my subjects? Of course I do. So I really think that she's being selective now. Now, I don't blame her at all.
Yeah, Chris, she's earned the right to pick and choose, right?
Yeah, and you know, you if you've got the top job and you're right, you know, then you have got that right. And I mean, I wouldn't call her a crafty or whatever you said. Oh. I know it's tongue in cheek and stuff, but I wouldn't have said that. But look, she's been a fantastic monarch. We're celebrating 70 years. She looks glorious. The Daily Mail, as you would expect, have gone to town on how well she looks. And I think we should just enjoy the twilight of her career, like she seems to be enjoying the tattoo, what we would call military tattoo, the events. And, you know, you ask yourself, will Charles and then the other royals be able to live up to her legacy?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Boots to fill, that's for sure.
100%.
Very big boots to fill. I wouldn't want to try and do it myself. And I think we've had so much time to get used to, haven't we? But I've started to notice bunting going up and down. I was down in the West Country over the weekend and I'm just beginning to see flags going up. The country's getting excited. And I think there is... after everything we've been through, lockdowns and you name it, we're ready for a bit of a national knees up, aren't we?
That would be really, really nice, you know, if that happens, that we get our mojo back. You know, we keep on talking about, I'm sure we're going to talk about the cost of living crisis, you know, and the pandemic, all this negativity.
Yeah.
If she would be the person that rallies a flag and we all get happy again and spend a few bob, have a few bevies, you know, brilliant.
Yeah. Well, let's not get carried away on the pay-per-view. Let's get back down to the miserable stuff again now. Liz, should we talk about this cost of living crisis Chris has mentioned? It's on the front of the Telegraph this morning, and the Prime Minister blaming Brussels now in relation to the protocol. He is speaking specifically about the situation in Northern Ireland when he says this.
Yeah, he's saying that because of the protocol, which means there cannot be a border on the island of Ireland, because that would undermine the peace process, the Good Friday Agreement. It's now invisible, notional one. So you can't take goods from, from mainland UK into Northern Ireland without going through all the paperwork that you would if you were importing them into the EU. And he says that's adding to prices. It's holding up the UK government from making the kind of VAT changes they'd like to make now that we're no longer a member of the EU. He's off today to try and sort it out. Things like already being mooted are taking VAT off, things like solar panels, etc. If you want to install those, I'd take VAT off fuel. I mean, the Treasury is coining it in. I can't believe how much I've spent, especially as a proportion of my total spending, on petrol in the it's like 100 quid every time.
I mean, do you think that Europe will accept that this protocol was drawn up pre all of the cost of living crisis, the war in Ukraine. It is time to look at it again, do you think? Or, are we broadly in support as a panel of unilateral action from the UK? Because it does look like the Foreign Secretary is going to declare that they're going to rip up.
Is it okay?
parts of
Is it okay to break a deal if the situation changes?
Well, he's saying that it's great actually, because he's now saying, before they were saying, well, you'd signed a deal under international law and you can't break that after 5 years, but he's now saying, well, when we signed that, the world was a different place. There was no COVID.
But he's right, though. Look, he's right. Look, Brexit's not done. We've decided to leave the European Union, and of course, there's a lot of detail behind that, and it won't be done for years, if not decades, fully to untie all of the bonds.
But he said Brexit is done. He campaigned on it and was re-elected on it.
So the Brexit's done as much as we have decided to leave and we have left. That is done. However, after that, there's minutiae, there's detail, there's processes, procedures, there's systems that need to be altered. And of course, we've got the right to have our own autonomous decisions. So there is this tension between the autonomy of the United Kingdom and the community of the European Union. And it needs to be worked out. Now, we are civil. Hopefully we can get it done civilly for the best, enlightened self-interest of both parties. However, we need to own our country. We need to own our nation. We need to own our laws.
I think Robert Fox was, a bit persuaded by me, because I was trying to tell him that the Eurovision Song Contest had done great things for us on the international stage. And at first he was laughing at me, and then like a bit of a chink was to be seen. He goes to Brussels. I know it sounds trite, you know what a farce the Eurovision Song Contest is, but Boris Johnson is going to Brussels today as about Brussels, as the recognised hero of Europe. Yeah. Because we have not come second in the Eurovision Song Contest since 1997. Sorry, 90. I can't remember now. It was Sonia, little Sonia, and we haven't won since 1997. And suddenly everybody's voting for us. And I was saying it's because Boris Johnson has actually proved himself to be a bit of a statesman in Europe on the international stage, and I think he'll be buoyed by that. And more.
Sam Ryder makes it.
I was going to say Sam Ryder's. What's that? What, you don't like the competition?
No. Well, I mean, I loved it when I was a kid. I remember watching it all, but I mean, it's not a competition, is it really? It's not really.
Well, it's always a political.
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, Chris, you've chosen it. It's on the front of the Metro this morning, and this is Zelensky saying that actually in 1 year's time we will host the Eurovisions. What do you call them? The Eurovision in Kyiv. Bit of a big shout from him.
It's a nice dream and something to work towards. But I think Liz was saying in the green area, we will have some sort of statement. Because it will be war-torn and an impossibility, and so it'll end up coming to...
the UK. Les Royaumes Unis. But Robert Fox, who I admire greatly, said no. He said they'll just insist it's in Kyiv and they'll surround it with 500,000 Ukrainian troops. He's convinced that
it will happen.
Well, he's now dead keen on the Eurovision Song Contest.
Good for you. You persuaded him. OK. I'm hoping we've got time to do a few more stories. We'll have a look at the NHS in crisis now, Chris. There's been lots of talk about the NHS over the course of the weekend, but this is all down to bureaucracy.
Yeah, so the fear in the newspaper is that more money is going to be spent on senior managers and not enough on frontline staff. And they're talking about NHS waiting lists, A&E trolley waiting, and what they labelled waste and wokery. So I think they're talking about sort of the training in diversity and inclusion and all the other different training examples. Look, I don't know I don't want to keep on hammering some of our great institutions. We've got the NHS being hammered here, we've got the police being hammered here, and in the end, you do need to have managers, and you do need to pay them appropriately. I am not saying at the cost at front line. We do need to invest in our NHS. My fear is that we keep on hammering the morale of the people that have been working there. 2 years ago, we were waving the flag, and now we seem to be just carping all the time. So I've had a great experience over the last year with the NHS. They've been very good to me when I needed them. ask the public.
Well, anecdotally, I'm hearing horror stories. A friend of mine's father is dying at the moment, and the nurses on the ward too busy to spend the time to feed him because it was a long, slow process for him to be fed. And because family weren't there all the time, effectively, he was being starved at the end of his life.
Not
and
uncommon.
they said, just let us... And just so sad, difficult for the nurses, because obviously no nurse or doctor wants to see their patients in that situation, but they haven't got any...
enough nurses.
There's
there haven't
no
been for
resources,
a long time.
and I'm just hearing more and more of these sorts of horror stories.
So what is the
Well, we need to
solution?
recruit more.
Right.
Desperately.
That's what they.
need to
Yeah,
recruit more.
that's what the Royal College.
Retain and recruit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you don't need a qualified nurse at degree level to feed. I mean, I sat with my dad when he was dying for, I was on end for weeks, and I ended up feeding people because I sat there and watched them plonk the food in front of old guys and just leave it. And, tragic seeing like a 80-odd-year-old, 90-odd-year-old trying to eat his food, nobody had taken the cling film off it, got his arm in, trying to cut a jacket potato with one hand. I couldn't watch it. But you don't need medical training to do that. You need ward... My auntie used to be like a ward orderly or something, and that was her job, clean, washing people, feeding them. We need more
we
of
had
that.
so many volunteers, didn't we? The Jabs Army during the COVID crisis. And I know a lot of people, well-meaning, good-intentioned people with time, who would probably step up if we asked them. Is there a call to be made, or does this need to be proper paid jobs? I mean, there's a...
I think it needs to be proper paid jobs. I think we've got to really think about our police service. We've got to think about our NHS. We've got to invest in them properly. And we talk about cost of living crisis. People are wanting work. Well, let's make it attractive for them to go to work. We found money for people, people staying at home. I forgot the term we used.
Furlough.
Furlough. We've found money for furlough. We're finding money for Ukraine. We're finding money for certain...
Yeah, we're pretty...
So let's find money. Yeah, let's find money for NHS and for the police force.
Speaking of police...
Yes.
Should we talk about that, Liz? Front page of The Times. We are not the thought police, top officers have been saying.
Yeah. So this is a cry from Andy Cook, the new Chief Inspector of Constabulary. And he's saying we need to solve real crime. For instance, only 5% of burglaries led to any kind of charge in the last year, 4.3% of thefts, 2.9% of sexual offences, 1.3% of rapes. Meanwhile, 25,000 non-crime hate incidents are recorded annually. And what this guy is saying is that, I mean, at Rothschild Convent, as a good Catholic, I was taught that if you even think about doing something bad, it's a sin. I don't think the police can follow that strategy. This guy's saying, if you have a bad thought or you post something upsetting to others, unless you actually follow through and commit a crime, take action, then the police shouldn't be getting
quite often,
involved.
even when they do follow through and commit a crime, the police don't
they
follow up these days.
Yeah, they don't. If they don't attend a lot of time for burglary, they don't attend for car crime. They just tell you. They told us, oh, you'll have to put your own CCTV cameras.
But again, it's not the police's fault, is it? They're very thinly resourced. Numbers have been going down and down and down over the years. We talk about 20% increase, but actually, it's derided then by...
So are you saying we need more police, to cope with more crime, even including hate crime?
Absolutely, everything, exactly. The fact is, since 2008, it's probably even before then, but austerity measures, the global financial crisis, we spent money to the bankers, for example, but our infrastructure we took from. And it's time to reverse. Because, again, these are real people. Real people try to do a great job on a shoestring budget, not enough of them. And what they're saying is, we're told to focus here, because they're told what to do, focus here. Of course, there are going to be other areas that don't get the investment, don't get attention, because they're not resourced. They haven't got the time to do that. So rather than having a go at them, think about the morale, rather than having a go at them, because when stuff kicks off, they run towards stuff that all of us are running away from. When it really kicks off, that's what's happening. But think about their morale, day-to-day morale, when we keep battering the police.
Oh yeah,
as well.
I think it's very brave being a police officer. I'm not knocking
totally
it.
agree,
You don't know what you're going to go out to. You don't know what you're going to encounter. But I agree with you, Chris. But part of the problem as well, which is guys flagging up, is that the College of Policing's guidance is that they should treat any incident which is perceived to be motivated by hostility or prejudice as a hate crime and start investigating. So he's saying that the police's interpretation of the law has gone wonky somehow, and they've got to be more focused.
It's got to be clear laws, and their job is to enforce it, and it's a bit woolly at the moment. I think everyone would agree.
Right, well, really good to talk to both of you.
Thank you, Paul.
And we'll see you in the next hour. Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Right, it is 10 to 7. By the way, if you want to get back to us on any of those stories, gbviews@gbnews.uk. It is 10 to 7. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening this morning.
The Open University will launch an online course on Ukrainian culture and language to help UK families hosting refugees. The move comes with a range of measures supported by the OU to support Ukrainians with resources such as English, language courses and mental health support.
1 in 4 people with dementia have symptoms for more than 2 years before they are diagnosed. The Alzheimer's Society suggests the signs are too often dismissed as simply old age. It's produced a new checklist with the Royal College of GPs to help people identify symptoms that includes memory problems, becoming withdrawn and getting lost.
Children's physical activity levels fell below national guidelines in the wake of COVID-19, new data suggests. A study by the University of Bristol found that by the end of 2021, only a third of children reached the national recommended physical activity guidelines.
You're watching Breakfast on GB News. It's now time for this.
That's right, we are out on your doorstep today. If you're in the borough of Wandsworth in South London, look out for GB News. Wandsworth, of course, hitting the headlines a few weeks ago during the local council elections as the Conservatives lost it for the first time in over 40 years.
Yeah, our reporter Alice Porter is starting off in Tooting. Alice, who are you with today? What's happening there?
Hello there. Good morning, Paul. Good morning, Isabel. Yes, I'm in wonderful Wandsworth today, which, as Isabel was saying there, hit the headlines because the Conservatives lost it, having held control of it for over 40 years, but it's now in Labour's control. With the cost of living crisis becoming such a big issue, there are many people in Wandsworth who are very much feeling the effects. We're going to be going later on to Putney, which is, of course, a slightly more affluent area of London, but I'm now at the moment in Tooting Bec speaking to some of the people here who are quite concerned about the cost of living crisis. And I've got one character that I'm very intrigued for you to meet. Hello there, good morning.
Good morning.
You're live on GB News with Isabel Webster and Paul Hawkins. Can you just introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tony Pushdaddy of Tony the Uppercut. Welcome.
Now, I don't need a haircut, but I'm going to come in. What a lovely barbers. I love it. How long have you had this place for?
This place I've had it for about a year. It's coming up to 1st of June in 1 year. It's great. It's lovely. Tricky time to open it because it was just after lockdown and after the COVID, the coronavirus. But it was about a gamble. It was tricky. So it's been well. It's been well. It's a lovely area. It's great.
Now, I imagine when men sit in the chair when they're having their hair done, if they're anything like women, they often chat a lot. How are people, when they come in to your barbers, how are they feeling about issues to do with the cost of living?
Yeah, it's not easy. We had 2 years of lockdown, the COVID, a lot of people losing their job. A lot of people being sent home and going from a good job to a bad job, from a high paid to a low paid. Then you have inflation, prices have gone up. If you look into supermarkets, all the prices have gone up of everything, petrol, food, homeware. But we got the same money. So we're getting the same money, but we're spending more. And it's not good. It's not good. It's hard times. It's hard times for other people. A lot of people, they come to me because this is the thing between the customer and the barber, the client and the barber. We talk about issues, home problems, children. And it's a lot of people find it really difficult. finding it really, really difficult. Not easy.
I'm sure. Now, of course, as I was just sort of saying to the viewers there, Wandsworth has voted Labour the first time in over 40 years. That was quite a big deal, really, in the borough. I mean, was that something that surprised you? As you sound like a man who knows quite how people are feeling in the area.
It's not surprising. It's surprising and it's not surprising. I mean, Conservative have been around for so long. But then again, you know, as human beings, people, they like changes. We like changes. We like to see something better. We like to see someone working harder with us or for us. So, yeah, we like changes. Changes are good. Changes are good. And let's see what the Labour does. And I'm sure it's going to be good. I'm sure it's going to be good.
Now, before I go, there is something I want to do. Now, I'm not in the mood for a shave, but I am in the mood to try on one of these chairs. I've never sat in one of these chairs before, so I'm going to give it. Okay, so do I need to pull? What do I do? Okay, here we go. Am I going to go all the way back? Okay, here we go. Ah! Oh my god! There we go. Well, thank you very much for. I'm going to seriously shake your hand from there. Thank you so much. Well, there you go. I'm going to finish lying down like this. So I've been in Toting Beck today. I'm going to be heading up the road to Battersea to speak to some other people about how they find living in the area.
There you go.
Lucy, that has got to be a first.
Yeah, laid back Alice Porter there.
Alice, even. Oh my goodness, every time I call you Lucy, I've got a problem. So sorry, Alice. Whatever you do, don't get a grade 1. Don't leave there without all your beautiful, luscious locks intact. We'll see more from Alice a little bit later in the programme.
There you go. Alice Porter there in South London. Right, it is 5 to 7. Stay with us. We'll have all the latest from the Prime Minister's trip to Northern Ireland after this.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet at times with rain or showers moving northwards across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Well, zooming down to the southwest at lunchtime, and we'll see a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers. The showers possibly could be on the heavy side in places. The southeast will also see a mix of sunny spells and showers. In the sunshine, though, it will be feeling warm and quite humid. The showers may be a little more frequent across Wales, though, with a risk of some heavy and possibly thundery showers around. Moving east into the Midlands, and there'll be more in the way of cloud around this lunchtime, although southern areas will gradually brighten up. Temperatures there will be reaching 18 or 19 Celsius. Skies will also be rather dull across northern England, with some areas of heavy rain around, and it'll also be feeling rather cool in the east, and a breeze comes off the North Sea there. Well, into Scotland, and many parts will have a rather damp lunchtime and some heavy rain in places. It'll feel disappointing for mid-May, with temperatures staying in single figures for some. Northern Ireland, though, will be seeing skies begin to brighten up. However, some further showers will be quickly moving up from the south. Temperatures there more like 15 or 16 Celsius. And the rest of the afternoon will see the brighter skies continue to move northwards, but still with some rain around. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Monday morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Prime Minister vows to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol ahead of crisis talks in Belfast today.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock on Monday the 16th of May. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel, Webster and Paul Hawkins. Here's what's leading the news this Monday morning.
The Prime Minister Boris Johnson will fly to Belfast today for crisis talks in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government. He's expected to greenlight new legislation that could allow ministers to tear up parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol.
The leaders of Finland and Sweden have confirmed their intention to join NATO in a historic policy shift for the Nordic countries. Finland's president said that the move represented a new era opening.
It comes amid reports that Russia has lost a third of its invasion force in Ukraine. The latest assessment by the Ministry of Defence also revealed that the Kremlin's campaign in the east of the country is significantly behind schedule.
The Queen received a standing ovation as she arrived at the Royal Windsor Horse Show last night to watch a performance celebrating the Platinum Jubilee. Her attendance at the event, titled A Gallop Through History, is her second public appearance in 3 days.
Lots of you getting in touch about that already this morning. Delighted to see Her Majesty looking so well with the People's Channel. We want to hear from you. We'll read out as many of your emails or tweets as we can, so do join the conversation this morning. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GB News.
Yeah, and don't forget you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest news and opinions. Our top story then this morning, Boris Johnson heading to Belfast today for talks with the major Stormont parties in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government.
The Democratic Unionist Party is refusing to enter the Assembly over concerns about the Northern Ireland Protocol, which they argue undermines Northern Ireland's position in the UK by putting a trade border in the Irish Sea.
Well, despite signing up to the deal, the Prime Minister is now poised to publish legislation that would override parts of that deal.
So, in an article that was published late last night in the Belfast Telegraph, the Prime Minister has said that the protocol is out of date, adding that our shared objective must be to create the broadest cross-community support for a reformed protocol in 2024.
Yeah, it comes as the EU warns of retaliatory measures if the UK acts to unilaterally suspend or change the protocol.
Well, joining us now is the political commentator, Kevin Maher. Very good morning to you, Kevin. Look, let's start then with those key words from the Prime Minister, reform the protocol. So will they effectively, as some commentators will have it, be unilaterally tearing up the protocol? Or is there a legitimate argument here that things have changed? We've got a cost of living crisis, a war in Ukraine. It does need another look?
I think we'll not hear very much language about tearing up the protocol. I mean, Boris Johnson says in this piece in the Belfast Telegraph today that that's not what he's going to do at all, that the protocol, in effect, is here to stay. And we're now in the language of can the protocol be reformed? Can it be tweaked? Can it be finessed to avoid some of the outcomes that it's seen so far? Now, I mean, we've spent probably the last 18 months or so in detailed negotiations with the European Commission on all of this and not got very far. So this has led the government to the point where it's trying to jolt the negotiations, jolt the system by taking these unilateral measures. We're promised the outline of legislation as early as tomorrow, with the detail in subsequent days. And I think the government is slightly wary at this point. I think ministers are probably taking some deep breaths to see what the European Union responds with. Now, there's a whole range of scenarios here. One is that publishing legislation is not the same as enacting legislation, and enacting legislation is not the same as using the legislation. So I think the government thinks that there's a kind of a kind of a gentle escalation. I think that's probably their hope, that actually they can publish some of these proposals, which may reassure unionists that the government is being pretty firm on Europe and trying to address the protocol, which has obviously had significant effects in terms of decline of trade from Britain to Northern Ireland and an increase in trade on the island of Ireland. Now, for most people, that's neither here nor there. But for unionists, it's highly symbolic, and that's what's stopping the devolved institutions from getting back up and running again. So Boris Johnson is in town today to basically try and get these institutions moving again. He doesn't want a kind of hiatus like we saw last time, where the Assembly and the Executive didn't function for 3 years. So I think he's trying to avoid that scenario by being quite tough and saber-rattling on the protocol. Now, the kind of known unknown is how Europe responds. And as I say, there's a sliding scale of reactions here. And I think what we'll probably see is Europe taking a dim view of any unilateral action, but stopping short of immediate retaliatory measures. I mean, the great fear, and the great fear in government, in the Treasury and the Cabinet Office, is that if Europe were to take retaliatory measures, how deep would that affect the UK economy at a time when we're hovering above recession, and there's lots of issues, obviously, with cost of living. So this is high stakes politics from Boris Johnson, and I suspect what we'll see today is Boris Johnson at his kind of ameliorative best, rather than trying to wind the situation up. I think he'll be trying to calm things down, actually.
These are going to be difficult conversations between Boris Johnson and the unionists. Many of them want the protocol scrapped. He's talking about changing it. And given that he was in Belfast in 2019, I think it was the summer of 2019, he said no border in the Irish Sea. Then a few months later, he put a border in the Irish Sea. There is a lack of trust there between the two sides. So how is that conversation going to play out?
You're quite right. I mean, Boris Johnson has led the DUP up the path on several occasions. I mean, he addressed their party conference before he was Prime Minister in 2018, saying that there would be no hard border in the Irish Sea, come what may. And of course, as Prime Minister, negotiated exactly that. So the DUP are kind of, from their position, fair enough. I think they're probably quite sceptical about Boris Johnson's assurances. So I think this is why the idea of legislation is being brought forward, to put it on the table, to say, there you go. I'm prepared to do this. I'm going to publish a bill. I'm going to put that bill through Parliament, and we'll have those powers ultimately to use if we don't get any further in these negotiations. Now, as I say, there's a whole sliding scale of scenarios here, and the idea of publishing legislation, as I say, is not the same as it going through Parliament in the form that it starts off in. I think this would be very difficult to get through the House of Commons without serious amendments, and I think getting it through the House of Lords would probably be nigh on impossible. So the government at that stage would have to invoke the Parliament Act, which would still take a year then to get these proposals on the statute books. So there's quite a long trail of activity here. And I think in the intervening period, the government is hoping that actually it manages to strike a deal with the European Union to, as you say, reform and tweak the protocol. The protocol's here to stay. You either have a border across the island of Ireland, which nobody wants, and Boris Johnson re-emphasises that point today in his Belfast Telegraph piece. Nobody wants that, because not only is it very, very difficult to try and police a 310-mile border, but of course there's huge amounts of symbolism there from the time of the Troubles, and one of the government's red lines in this proposed legislation is that there won't be any infrastructure on the border, on the Irish border. So the only other way of managing these affairs is to have checks, customs checks, goods checks at the ports, which is basically what the protocol does. So rationally, the protocol makes sense. But as I say, there's an attempt to try and tweak and reform and finesse it rather than get rid of it. And that's the message that I think Boris Johnson's taken to the unionists today.
Yeah, and as you say, a long path ahead for all of that. And we're told just in the short to near term, there's still, as we speak right now at 7:08, debate about the exact language of any reform to the protocol. Very hard to thrash out within government itself before it even gets to the next stage. Look, Kevin Maher, delighted to have you on the programme. Thank you very much, author and commentator on British and Irish politics.
It is 7:08. Remember, you can get involved with the conversation this morning, GBviews at gbnews.uk. We're going to talk about Finland and Sweden, both confirming that they intend to join NATO in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Yes, the Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said joining the alliance was best for Sweden's and the Swedish people's security.
Comes as the latest Ministry of Defence briefing reveals that Russia may have lost a third of its forces since the start of the invasion.
Well, we're now joined by Rear Admiral Chris Parry, who is a former NATO commander. Very good morning to you. Always lovely to see you. Look, as a former NATO commander, you can give us a true insight on how big a deal this will be for NATO. How will this change the organisation?
Well, good morning. I think what's really interesting here is that Vladimir Putin went to war in Ukraine to stop Ukraine joining NATO and for lots of other reasons as well. But the last thing he would have wanted would be for Sweden and Finland, which constitute a major part of the Baltic, which is a real neurosis for Russia, to join NATO as well. So he's significantly shot himself in the foot here. If you think about the geography of the Baltic, the Russians during the Cold War dominated the whole eastern half of the Baltic Sea. They could rely on Finland and Sweden being neutral. Now they virtually are going to have a NATO lake in the Baltic. All they've got left is Kaliningrad, that tiny exclave between Poland and Lithuania, and the approaches to St. Petersburg. And from Vladimir Putin's point of view, that is a modern nightmare for them. The other neurosis, of course, is the Black Sea, and he's tried to sort that out by seizing Crimea and destabilizing and attacking Ukraine. That's not going very well either. So the twin things that have really obsessed Russian strategists for the best part of 100 years and beyond, the Baltic and the Black Sea, are about to become Russia's most vulnerable points.
Will Vladimir Putin have gamed this out in his head? Will he have anticipated this move, and will he know what he's going to do next?
You would have liked to have thought so, but I don't think he has. I mean, for years, they've had exercises similar to the sort of mobilization they've had around Ukraine before the invasion, opposite the Baltic states and Finland and Sweden. So they've been rattling their saber quite significantly over the best part of 10 years now. But it seems that they've taken their eye off the ball in the Baltic, to tell you the truth, while they've concentrated on the Black Sea. It sucked in a lot of their intellectual effort, and as you can see, quite a lot of their operational effort as well. And it seems that Russia, for all its vaunted strength, isn't able to concentrate on two theatres at the same time.
Question for you. Turkey. Are they going to make it difficult for the Nordic states to join NATO? They're already making a few grumblings.
Yeah, it's a good point. The issue with Turkey, of course, is they've been constantly rejected from joining the European Union. And I suspect what President Erdogan, in a run-up to the next election, wants to do is to provide some leverage for joining the European Union by saying, look, if two members of the EU are going to join NATO, we want to join the EU. So we at least want some sort of route into that. I suspect that's the play, but I reckon he'll be bought off at some stage with something else. The real problem with Turkey, of course, is it's got this ambivalent relationship with NATO. On the one hand, it's been a good member of NATO. It occupies a strategic position, but it's also been sort of cuddling up to Russia. It's planning to buy a fairly sophisticated surface-to-air missile system that isn't compatible with software and also the security issues associated with NATO infrastructure. And of course, it's got a lot of mutual issues with Russia in the Caucasus and places like that. So we're going to have to play Turkey very carefully indeed. But I suspect that Turkey won't be able to get in the way of Sweden and Finland joining. And they themselves will add considerable strength to NATO. Sweden has very modern armed forces. Finland, has a heritage of fighting against Russia in the past. They're under no illusions about what they're going to have to do in support of NATO's northern flank.
Yeah, and a third of Russia's forces in Ukraine have been destroyed, reportedly. Are you surprised?
Not at all, having seen the way the campaign's been conducted, frankly, by an incompetent rabble. You can't call this an army. This is a rabble that's been let loose on another country. We've seen all the atrocities, the looting and the violence against women and men as well. It's absolutely ludicrous to suggest that an army like that can take over a country the huge size of Ukraine. I think when we say they've lost a third of their forces, I think we have to realise that's killed and wounded. and also their equipment as well. The issue is, I think we're heading for a stalemate. I think Putin will seek to freeze the conflict as soon as he gains something significant in the south. So you can say, look, we've got the Donbass, we've got the Luhansk, we've got the bridge to Crimea. That's what I wanted anyway. That's what he'll con everybody. But he needs an out pretty quickly, to tell you the truth, because he's facing defeat on a wide front.
Rear Admiral Chris Parry, former NATO commander. Always good to get your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, really interesting what Chris had to say there. GBviews at gbnews.uk if you want to comment on that. It is just coming up to 7:15. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening this morning. Boris Johnson, for starters, holding emergency talks with Northern Ireland's leaders later in a bid to break the Stormont deadlock. The Assembly's been plunged into crisis in the wake of the local elections, with the DUP refusing to join a devolved government. They are protesting over the Northern Ireland Protocol and post-Brexit trading arrangements.
The Home Secretary has permanently lifted restrictions on the police in the use of stop and search powers. Priti Patel announced the easing of the rules surrounding the tactics, which gives officers the right to search people without reasonable grounds in an area when they expect serious violence.
The Queen has received a standing ovation at a star-studded event marking the last day of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. There she is, smiling broadly as she arrived at an arena close to Windsor Castle, with the audience cheering as she walked to the royal box.
Almost all the papers carrying pictures or indeed leading with that news that Her Majesty looking so good. The Daily Mail describing her as looking radiant, happy and simply glorious. And I have to say, it lifts your spirits to see her looking so good, doesn't it?
It does.
96 years old, lots of question marks about whether she was going to be fit for any of the upcoming events, because, of course, we just saw the State Opening of Parliament having to be conducted by her son. But she looked so well.
She did. She looked very well.
You watched it, didn't you?
She did. We watched some of it at home, and she looked fantastic. And we were wondering, is she going to turn up? Is she not? And she did. She arrived by a car and then made her way up to the stage. And she did look. She looked like she was really enjoying it. And she's never missed the horse show in Windsor ever, not 1 year during her reign. So horses, have formed a big part of her life. And she looked really pleased to be there.
Well,
and why not?
Do you know what? I think she looked more happy than I can remember her looking. I mean, really, usually she'd be quite reserved, even on a happy occasion, but big, broad smiles and walking, as you say.
Horses are one of her loves.
It is one of her great loves.
They were showing pictures of her riding horses from a really young age, so to be there and to see that on a personal level for her was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And over the weekend, I was beginning to see bunting going up, flags going up in a few places. Yeah. We're getting excited, aren't we? Let us know your thoughts ahead of the Platinum Jubilee celebrations. About two and a half weeks away now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and big lunches taking place, street parties and that kind of thing. So let us know how you're going to get involved. Yeah. GBviews at gbnews.uk.
Now, today is the start of Dementia Action Week, which is raising awareness for a condition which now affects more than 850,000 people here in the UK. That's over 1 in 14 people over the age of 65.
Well, joining us now for more is Professor June Andrews, an expert on dementia. Professor Andrews, welcome to the programme. Good to have you with us. Good
morning.
In a nutshell, why is the number of people with dementia increasing?
So the risk of having dementia increases as you get older. And as you know, the population in our country is getting older. And so the number of people who are likely to get dementia is increasing. But the good news is it's not increasing as fast as we once thought it might do. So with the older population, you expect more. But with some of the things that have been happening, perhaps it's not increasing as fast as we had feared.
And I understand if you get early intervention, you can actually prevent it from getting its full grasp of you. So what are the things that people should be looking out for? Because, everybody does get a bit forgetful as they get older, perhaps repeat a few stories. At what point is it being elderly, and at what point is it the early warning signs of dementia?
Well, dementia isn't part of normal ageing. Dementia is a whole bunch of symptoms that are a sign that you've got a brain disease, and there's a range of diseases that can cause those signs. And although we often think of it as a memory problem, the memory issues aren't often the things that are most troublesome to people. it's not being able to cope with life the way you used to. So that would be not managing your finances, not remembering words, perhaps not recognising members of your family, and things that just make life very difficult to live independently. And there is no cure, but there are things that you can do to make it less likely that you're going to get dementia, and also things that would make it later in onset so that you can live healthily for a longer period of time. And the sorts of things that you can do have been known for some time, and that includes exercise, keeping well physically, being careful around alcohol, and absolutely avoiding smoking. There's a whole range of lifestyle issues that seem to make a big difference, and we're hoping that the earlier people start that maybe at some point in the future the amount of dementia will be even less.
Yeah, I have a very limited amount of experience dealing with patients with dementia, but what I did learn during that brief period working in a hospital was that dementia affects people in different ways. And there was one lady who, she still had a sense of humour, but she didn't really know what was going on. Another lady, though, was sort of consumed by paranoia that people were stealing from her. And what I drew from that was that you don't know how it's going to affect different people, and it's very individual.
That's right. And it's interesting that your experience has mainly been with people in hospital, because sometimes doctors and nurses only see a person with dementia when they're in hospital, but there are very many people with dementia who are living independently in the community, people who are still driving, people who are doing lots of interesting and lively things and even working. So the person with dementia in hospital isn't a typical picture. And as you say, each person with dementia is quite difficult. The paranoia that people sometimes get is because if you can't remember why you are where you are, or why you don't have things round about you that you expect, then you start to wonder if someone else has removed your stuff, or if somebody is stopping you from being free. So that kind of paranoia comes from not understanding what's going on. So if you can create an environment that's easy for the person with dementia to understand, then they'll be much more like their old self, much more like they've always been. So a lot of looking after people with dementia is about keeping life as normal as possible and having as much fun as possible. And I'm glad you noticed that one of the ladies had a lot of fun and had a laugh, because some of my best laughs I've had with people with dementia. We can all have great fun, but it is very, very difficult for carers and the families who are looking after, because it's a tiring job, and it's a 24-hour job sometimes, caring for someone who's living through that experience.
Yeah, oh my goodness, and so many of us affected by this through our loved ones. We're so grateful to people who care for people suffering from dementia. Music has a huge power, doesn't it? It's something that, you know, people might have forgotten the faces of some of their immediate relatives, their daughters, their sons, but they hear a song and they come alive. The power of music always amazes me.
The amazing thing about the music is the amount of comfort that it gives to families, because if you've reached the stage where your granny doesn't remember you anymore, doesn't remember your name or even the fact that you existed, and you hear her singing a familiar song, then it really makes you feel as if you've got her back again. Music is very comforting to everyone in our society. I mean, we all love a bit of music. But sometimes when you have dementia, perhaps you're living somewhere where people don't give you access to the music that you really enjoy, your favourite playlist from life. So it's important to start now talking to your family about what you would want to happen if you ever did have dementia, making sure they know what your favourite music is, and making sure that they understand that you're okay with perhaps going to a care home later. I see so many unhappy families who've made the promise that they'll never let it happen, but a time comes when it's virtually impossible to care for the person in their own home. And if they're both letting their mum go to a care home, but at the same time also breaking a promise, that's very hard. So people should start talking about it as early as possible to make sure that life is as easy as possible, both for themselves and the people who are caring for them.
Yeah, listen, Professor, really good to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Professor June Andrews there, who is an expert in dementia. It is Dementia Action Week across the UK, so lots of campaigning going on to raise awareness of what is a horrendous disease.
It really is. I have so many memories of my grandmother always struggling with her handbag and worrying that she didn't have bits and bobs in her handbag, which we would all be sort of watching her going, "It's all right, Grandma, you've got everything, it's all there."
Yeah.
She'd be constantly fretting about it. But they say stress and shift work, really bad for dementia.
Yeah, no,
So
I can imagine that. Bringing a stress on the rain. Yeah, indeed.
Everyone in this newsroom's panicking in my ear going, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Look, with that, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we'll be talking about all the sports from the weekend, and we're looking at the back pages today with broadcaster Eamonn McGee. See you in a moment. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet at times with rain or showers moving northwards across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Well, zooming down to the southwest at lunchtime, and we'll see a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers. The showers possibly could be on the heavy side in places. The southeast will also see a mix of sunny spells and showers. In the sunshine, though, it will be feeling warm and quite humid. The showers may be a little more frequent across Wales, though, with a risk of some heavy and possibly thundery showers around. Moving east into the Midlands, and there'll be more in the way of cloud around this lunchtime, although southern areas will gradually brighten up. Temperatures there will be reaching 18 or 19 Celsius. Skies will also be rather dull across northern England, with some areas of heavy rain around, and it'll also be feeling rather cool in the east, and a breeze comes off the North Sea there. Well, into Scotland, and many parts will have a rather damp lunchtime and some heavy rain in places. It'll feel disappointing for mid-May, with temperatures staying in single figures for some. Northern Ireland, though, will be seeing skies begin to brighten up. However, some further showers will be quickly moving up from the south. Temperatures there more like 15 or 16 Celsius. And the rest of the afternoon will see the brighter skies continue to move northwards, but still with some rain around. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Monday morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Still to come on today's programme. It's the London Borough which recently switched its political allegiance. At around 7:45, we'll be on your doorstep in Wandsworth chatting to residents about the rising costs of living. Also coming up in an hour's time, it's Money Monday. Our consumer champion Kate Hardcastle will be here with her top tips on how to beat the squeeze. Today she's sharing her advice when it comes to buying the big ticket items like TVs and garden furniture. Remember, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing us gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews. So now time to go through the biggest sports stories with Eamonn McGee. Eamonn, a very good morning to you.
How you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks. More importantly, how are Manchester City doing? Because they were 2-0 down at half-time yesterday against West Ham, but they pulled it back.
They did. I mean, you know, it always looked a tricky tie on paper anyway. West Ham have had a really good season. They've recently been in the Europa League semi-finals. City go there. They play abominably in the first half. The timing of West Ham's goals didn't help either. I mean, their second goal was scored literally seconds before the half-time whistle blow. Historically, that's always been a really bad time to concede. So City were shell-shocked going into the dressing room. They've got this manager, Pep Guardiola, who's got a ferocious temper when he needs one, like all the top bosses. He was asked afterwards, because they pulled it back to 2-2. They then missed a penalty with 4 minutes to go, which won them the game and pretty much sealed the Premier League title for them. But nonetheless, it was still, I think, with a point and the goal differential, was a good result for them. Pep Guardiola was asked after the game, what did you say to them at half-time? Now, in Alex Ferguson's time, it would have been teacups, hairdryer treatment, teapots flying all over the place. He said, I went in there, I'd like to know your view on this, actually, because my bosses might not have been as sympathetic. But he said he walked into there and he looked at his players and he said, and this is after a dreadful first-half performance, he said, I love you.
And that was it?
So I love you, yeah, but this is what you got to do. Get the fullbacks pushed up, you'll create a few more chances, kept calm, and they were a completely different beast in the second half and turned it round. Still 2-2, they dropped points, but because Liverpool dropped points last week, they just need a win at home to Aston Villa on the last day of the season. Villa managed, of course, by Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, yes, that's going to be interesting. Yeah. But that's an astonishing half-time team talk, given Sir Alex Ferguson was known for the hairdryer. Yeah, I mean, I'm working out what's the opposite metaphor for the hairdryer when you tell someone, I love you, to get them motivated?
I don't know, is it the warm... The hug of warmth, maybe? Have we made that up just now? Is that right?
It's all getting a bit woke.
It is a little bit. I had a boss at the News of the World who, even when I was good, I'd still get the hairdryer, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a far cry from that era. But maybe that's how you have to challenge egos, or you have to challenge them to egos to do better these days. Maybe it doesn't work to just lay into them because you kind of lose them.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a generational thing. A lot of managers do think that. They think that the softly approach is far more effective. You look at Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, for example, he's far more likely to put his arm around a player than he is to actually tell them off. If he does tell them off, it's going to be behind closed doors, away from the cameras, so the player doesn't suffer that dip of confidence when you need the most.
I guess it's about knowing your players, isn't it?
Without question.
And what works with them. So the gap at the top is now 4 points, and Liverpool have a game in hand.
Liverpool have a game in hand, so they play in the week against Southampton. They then play Wolves. Everybody kicks off simultaneously next Sunday, and then there's the Champions League final the week after that. Having said that, City have got to play Villa at home. It's a comfortable-looking fixture. Much more comfortable than going to West Ham yesterday, for example. But, as I say, I think it's quite important that Villa are managed by Steven Gerrard, who will have his team massively up for this. Liverpool legend, of course. They're not going to lie down on the final day. But I still think if you've given that situation, that scenario to City a month ago when they lost those 14 points, then I think that they would certainly have taken that, no question about it. But a big game elsewhere big games elsewhere in the Premier League as well.
Yeah,
touch on that.
Yeah. So, the quadruple's still on for Liverpool.
Technically, yeah.
Yeah, Chelsea's women did better than Chelsea's men.
They did, yeah. So Chelsea's men I didn't think it was a particularly great final on Saturday. Some people thought it was. I thought it was watchable. I think
it was okay.
It was okay
for a 0-0.
For a 0-0, yeah. Look, I like to see goals. I mean, the competition's been denigrated hugely in the last 20 years. I mean, there's a story this morning that one of Chelsea's defenders, Andreas Christensen, told the manager Thomas Tuchel before the game that he didn't want to play because he's joining Barcelona. Yeah. Now, he wouldn't have said that if it was a Champions League final, if it was a crucial Premier League game, but FA Cup final. Who cares? Yeah. You know, that's the way it is now, unfortunately. It didn't even kick off at 3 o'clock. But anyway, that's by the by in a way. We look at the women yesterday, 48,000 crowd there. They got the pricing right, which was good, £20 for adults and £2.50 for children. And they got a 48,000 crowd, which is pretty impressive. And then further down the league yesterday in the Premier League, we had Brentford winning at Everton. So Everton, Burnley, Leeds are locked in this struggle for survival. It's looking very dicey. Leeds were the only side who managed to take a point yesterday, and that was 2 points dropped in a way because they really need to win at home to Brighton. Everton absolutely coasting, doing so well against Brentford. They get a man sent off. Suddenly the whole dynamic changes, Paul. You know, you get a man sent off these days in modern football, you're decreasing your chance of winning by 50%.
Yeah.
Everton even retook the lead against those 11 men, being a man down. They still lost, and then there was the racial issues afterwards as well. 2 Brentford players saying that their families were racially abused in the stands, so very unedifying from that point of view.
Yeah,
as well.
Indeed, yeah. So you still got the top four, you got the title race, you got the relegate, there's still loads to play for, and the Champions League final as well.
Yeah, so
loads to watch.
Massive game tonight as well, with obviously Tottenham beat Burnley yesterday, so that had repercussions or implications for the top and the bottom of the table, but Arsenal go to Newcastle tonight. They really need to win that game. They can't afford to step up.
And just very quickly, Novak Djokovic is still good at tennis. He won the Italian Open.
He's still good at tennis, yeah, he is. I'd say he's got a decent chance. I mean, he's struggled earlier in the year. He's going to the French Open, it looks like, later in the month. Rafa Nadal's got a bit of a foot injury. He might be there for the taking.
Yeah. Aidan, really good to see you. Thank you so much.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much. Aidan McGee there, sports broadcaster and journalist on GB News.
Just a little bit good at tennis, just a little bit.
He's all right.
He's all right.
I'll give him a game.
Not too shabby. Look, stay with us. We're going through your Monday morning newspapers. Her Majesty the Queen on the front of most of them.
Yeah.
Chris Akabusi and Liz Kershaw taking us through those after this. See you in a sec.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. It is 7:36. Goodness me, let's bring you up to date with what is happening this morning.
Boris Johnson is to hold emergency talks with Northern Ireland's leaders later in a bid to try and break the Stormont deadlock. The Assembly has been plunged into crisis in the wake of the local elections, with the DUP refusing to join a devolved government. It's in protest over the Northern Ireland Protocol and post-Brexit trading arrangements.
The Home Secretary has permanently lifted restrictions on the police in the use of stop and search powers. In a letter to the police, Priti Patel announced the easing of conditions on the use of the tactics under Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, which gives officers the right to search people without reasonable grounds in an area where they expect serious violence.
A 3-year-old boy has died after a suspected dog attack in Rochdale, Greater Manchester. Police there say officers were called yesterday afternoon after reports a child had been injured in the town of Milnrow.
The Queen has received a standing ovation at a star-studded event marking the last day of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. Her Majesty smiling broadly as she arrived at an arena close to Windsor Castle, with the audience cheering as she walked to the royal box.
OK, it's time to take a look through your Monday morning newspapers this morning with the broadcaster Liz Kershaw and the Olympian Chris Akabusi. Very warm welcome back to both of you.
Could I put my chair down?
No, I quite like it up there. You're right up there, Liz.
Well, I'm going to go to Chris first of all. I'm going to Chris. I'll give you some privacy. We've gone too far down now.
That's all right. What's going on?
Look, we'll let you fiddle with that. And Chris, let's talk about work from home. It's on the front of the FT this morning. Lots of messages about getting back into the office from from government. And yet it seems as though it's falling on deaf ears. Employees quite reticent to do that.
Yes, our UK offices are 30% down in occupation levels, and community services are being used 25% less than pre-pandemic times. And I get it. I understand that there are considerable benefits from working at home. For example, you're not wasting time on the train or in between locations. I understand that. But I also think there's a lot that you lose potentially from not working in an office. The odd discussion around the water cooler where an idea gets generated, the synergistic effect of 4 or 5 of you all of a sudden come up with an idea and moving on. I mean, Liz was talking to
Robert Fox,
and some great exchange of ideas happened in that moment, which wouldn't happen if they were only in their own particular abodes. And my concern will be that if we agitate to this full movement to working at home, you encourage a surveillance culture from your own home. And there is something about having your home and your private life and getting dressed up to go to a place of work, and you're stepping across that Rubicon into an arena and getting ready to deliver. When I think of my time as a sportsman, getting dressed and putting on the uniform, it meant something. Yeah. And you found something extra.
Working from home wouldn't have worked then.
No.
Actually, you sprint around the kitchen. Yeah, exactly. Using the garden rake for a javelin. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly right. So you understand some of the discussions, but there are some people who are saying that they will refuse to go back to the office if they're made to.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit beyond the pale.
I feel like this debate always gets reduced down to this binary choice by going back to the office or working from home. Most people are saying, let's be grown up about this and do a bit of a hybrid mix.
Yes.
And you still get that synergy at the water cooler or whatever you want to call
Liz, horses for courses, right? It depends what you do, how old you are, where you work.
Well, I mean, for 2 years I sat at the breakfast bar at home with my laptop and interviewed people all over the world, and I really craved that face-to-face interaction, and just and I was going into broadcasting house to do my radio show, but you weren't allowed to go in the lift with anybody. I sat in a glass box on my own. I miss that social side, but I mean, coming here, it's been great since January, because it's only GB News that's having the paper reviewers in the studio with you. On rival channels. They've still got them on Zoom. It keeps dropping out. They keep saying you're on mute. The pitch keeps... But I just think, you meet so many interesting people when you're going out and about.
I definitely love going into the office, but I do think I often have some of my best ideas when I'm sat at home working, thinking quietly, no distractions. And I do think that people who say working from home is the easy option, people say they sit at their desk for longer, they've got their emails coming in from the minute they wake up. There is, in many ways, the commute is a bit of downtime, no kids to look after, no office to be stuck in, whereas when you're working from home, you're actually working longer.
But the flip side to that be, if you sit at your desk, at your kitchen, and yes, I agree, you are working, but then you're getting up and you're getting your cup of coffee, or someone rings the bell and so you're looking at the delivery person. There's so many side distractions.
The cat comes and sits on your lap or whatever.
But I do get it. So in my job as a professional speaker, there are real benefits from the intimacy of being in the screen, and when you're speaking to people, you get to actually call up somebody and they can contribute to the discussion. Whereas when you're on stage and you've got 500 people, you don't see that person's going, oh yeah, I get that. So, as a speaker, there are benefits from, and there is an intimacy looking at the screen. But it's not the same as the buzz of being in the room, talking and getting that biofeedback. I mean, that's awesome and I love it.
But work travel has changed. I mean, when I was a child living in Rochdale, I'm so sorry to hear about that dog attack today. Your parents, family, friends, whatever, went to work, one 10-minute bus ride or one 10-minute drive in the car. I I think before you can expect people to go back to work in the office, something's got to be done because nowadays, if you work in central London, unless you're on a fantastic salary, you cannot afford to live anywhere near your workplace. And people travelling in from the Isle of Wight, commuting from the Isle of Wight, from Peterborough, spending 4 hours a day on a train.
Packed train.
Yeah, and standing £7,000 a year from Milton Keynes to Euston Station, a 30-minute journey, £7,000 a year season ticket, and you don't even get a seat most of the time.
So that's been Isabel's idea then, of this hybrid idea, that you might come in only once or twice in a week, as opposed to every day.
And not 9 to 5, because if you stagger it, I mean, it's great coming in at 4:30 in the morning. The M1's like a private drive. You know, if you could stagger it so everybody's not piling in at once, then it might be more attractive to people.
Liz, you wanted to talk about Jeremy Clarkson. And he's warning, it just says here, hunger warning by Jezza. What's this all about?
It was his column. I love his column in the Times on a Sunday. And it's usually, you know, something daft. But yesterday, he was tackling a very serious topic with his farmer's hat on. I loved Clarkson's Farm, but I can't wait for the second series on Amazon TV. But he learned such a lot, and people were saying they learned more from that than Country File or Old Farming Today or whatever, because it was so engaging and entertaining. But he showed how difficult it is to produce food that we take for granted. So I'm glad of the opportunity to talk about this because it's been lifted by the Sun from yesterday's Times. So it's in the papers today. And what Jezza was saying basically is we are facing a massive food crisis. Because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, the attack by Russia on Ukraine, Ukraine being the bread basket of Europe and the fifth largest supplier of grain in the world, particularly to African and Middle Eastern countries where it's too arid to grow anything. And so we're two-pronged thing. First of all, all the young, able-bodied people in Ukraine are fighting. They're not planting crops. So there's a 40% drop in the amount of grain, plus the Russians have blocked the Black Sea ports, so they can't even export it. Meanwhile, because we can't get the fertilisers also produced there, then our farmers are going to be producing 20% less food. So we're going to see shortages, prices rocketing. Who's calling for the government to put more resources and really face up to this and stop covering our land, for example, in solar panels, you know, grow crops. But he was pointing out that the Arab Spring started because of food prices. And I can't remember what year it was now. Was it 2010?
It's around
anyway,
2010.
So it then spread across North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, Libya, Egypt. The knock-on effect of that was with food protests and riots. Then it spread, aiding the war, causing the war in Syria. That led to massive migration from the Middle East into Europe, which led to all sorts of political problems in Europe, with Angela Merkel, etc. You could even say Brexit to some extent. So he's saying this will be much bigger
than
that.
Cannibalism.
In
that headline.
That was like sensationalising.
Right. Okay.
You know what Clarkson's humour's like.
Right.
You know,
we're going to be eating our own arms or something.
Yeah, but he does make a legitimate point, Chris. This could be this. I mean, this. You know, we're looking at inflation, 10% a year, the cost of everything rising. You know, and some people are warning that this could, you know, society could start to break down if the government doesn't step in.
Well, I mean, you can go. There was a very thin veil of civility over society where we agree to come together and work together on our best aims. But if the government and our systems are not operating towards myself, then obviously, quite clearly, my allegiance is to my family. And so you can quite easily see how you get little despots, little groups, little factions fighting for the minimal resources.
Yeah.
And that's how you get, you know, big gang...
It's the survival instinct.
100%. And you saw it when it started, the COVID pandemic started, how we started stockpiling toilet paper.
Newspapers.
Well,
exactly.
That's a bit
we won't discuss which newspapers. But,
but, you know, pretty quickly you get feral and you get me, us, and then you begin to other a whole raft of people.
Well, look, there doesn't seem to be a shortage of eggs, and we've got 30 seconds to cover this, Chris. If you can just quickly talk about what's been going on with this new statue of Margaret Thatcher that was erected.
Yeah, well, I'll hope to come back to that because she deserves much more airtime. Basically, you've got activists who are really upset that her plinth is up there. She did great. She Marmite, she polarised, but when I think of the world that we were in the 70s, with all the rubbish on the streets and unions having so much power, you know, she tackled that. And I just don't understand how people... I can understand how you're upset with her, but some decorum.
Well, defacing statues was, you know, pretty much legitimised, was it? That's a question in the wake of the whole Colston case in
it's
court.
back to the police we were talking about earlier. The police don't seem to take action if you... As Chris said, it's criminal damage.
Criminal damage, yeah. It's criminal damage, and isn't that supposed to be a thing? Aren't you supposed to be a law against that?
Yeah. Cost of living crisis, but there's always money for eggs.
Look, we'll probably cover that again in the next pay-per-view. For now, Liz Kershaw, Chris Akabisi, thank you very much. We'll see you again at about 40 minutes' time.
Yep, gbviews@gbnews.uk if you want to get involved with the conversation. That we'll go through some of your views in just a moment. It is 11 minutes to 8. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening this morning. The Open University launching an online course on Ukrainian culture and language to help families in the UK who are hosting refugees. The move comes with a range of measures to support Ukrainians coming here, such as English language courses and mental health support.
1 in 4 people with dementia have symptoms for more than 2 years before they're diagnosed. The Alzheimer's Society suggests the signs are too often dismissed as simply old age. It's produced a new checklist with the Royal College of GPs to help people identify symptoms that include memory problems, becoming withdrawn and getting lost.
Children's physical activity levels have fallen well below national guidelines in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. New data suggests the University of Bristol has found by the end of last year, only a third of children reached the national recommended physical activity guidelines.
OK, it's time now for On Your Doorstep.
And this morning, we're in the borough of Wandsworth in South London. Wandsworth, of course, drawn into the headlines a few weeks ago during the local council elections as the Conservatives lost it for the first time in over 40 years.
Well, our London reporter Alice is now in Battersea. Tell us who you're with now. You managed to escape the barber's chair.
Hello there, good morning. Yes, I still have my hair, thank goodness for that. Yes, I've just moved up. I'm now just south of the river. It's just along from me, up above me, and I'm now in Battersea speaking to people out and about the issues which matter to them. So we've got our next person for On Your Doorstep. Good morning. Hello, you're live on GB News. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm Stephen. I'm a 28-year-old student living here in Battersea.
Lovely. Right, can I come in? Is that OK? Thank you. OK, this is going to take me back to my student days, is it?
Probably not. I did a quick tidy.
You've done a quick tidy. OK, well, thank you. Oh, lovely. So how many people have you got living here?
So 3 of us in total.
OK.
So there's me, there's my housemate Charlie, who's a dance teacher, and then there's my housemate Luigi, who is a civil engineer.
OK, cool. Oh, thank you for the coffee.
No worries.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. You've been living here in the area for quite some time. I mean, we were actually just talking about the local council elections and the fact that the council has now gone Labour for the first time in over 40 years. I mean, as somebody sort of living in the area, were you surprised by that?
Yes, so I've been living here for 3 years. I was fairly surprised. Quite a few of us were thinking about it before it actually happened, but one of the things that I found most interesting was only one ward in Wandsworth actually had an over 50% turnout, most of them around 30%. And local authorities matter, and how can you have a representative local authority when less than 1 in 2 people are voting? So yes, I mean, it was a surprise that it went Labour for the first time, but I think that's the real story that no one's really talking about yet.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think a lot of people are struggling with the cost of living, and I guess a lot of people are also feeling maybe politically not as engaged as perhaps they have been. Maybe that's part of the pandemic. I mean, as a student living in London, I mean, how are you sort of finding things at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's student life anyway, isn't it? None of us are particularly well off. I've got a little part-time job in a bar as well, so it is a little bit difficult. It is one thing after another. At times it feels like we've been forgotten about a little bit. Our first year at the course was the first year of the pandemic, so we had our week and then immediately everything's locked down, go home, sit on your laptops. And from there, our contact hours just seem to be dwindling, and the value for money in that and of itself it's starting to get a little bit lower. I mean, I know I'm going to have about 30, 40k worth of debt in, a year, basically. So it is a bit tough, but at the same time, what else is there to do?
Yeah, I mean, if we think about that debt, I mean, you must have been when the government announced that the interest rates were going up for students who are paying back their loans. I mean, because I know you've previously were doing a degree, then you've changed, and so you've got quite a lot of debt. I mean, what was that like for you when you found that news out?
Very frustrated, because I mean, I was maybe 2 years after the increase as well, from 3,000 to 9,000. So I've caught it both times now. Luckily, the payments back for the first lot of loan has been put on hold until I finish this time round. So here's hoping I just get a good job when I come out. I mean, it's interesting though. I also did a semester abroad in Denmark, and the students there are getting paid between 670 and £1,000 a month just to go to university. No debt, no nothing. And they've also managed to get better facilities than what we have, plus contact hours every single day. So it's a little bit baffling where we're paying £9,000 a year. We're barely seeing our lecturers. We've not got very much response on our university emails, and the cameras we're using aren't particularly great. So where's the money actually going?
Well, look, Stephen, thank you very much for letting me into your home. I'll never say no to a free cup of coffee, so thank you very much. But really interesting. I think that gives you a bit of a flavour there. I think particularly how students in London are feeling. We've been talking a lot about the cost of living, but particularly students here who are not earning at the moment. It's a really, really difficult issue for them, particularly when it comes to paying back their student loans with interest rates going up.
Yeah.
It's tough, isn't it?
Very tough, yeah. And trying to get on the housing ladder after that and getting a job in a really difficult market. Thank you, Alice. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to your guest as well. That's our reporter, Alice Porter.
Look, lots of you getting in touch this morning. We've been talking about the proposed changes to stop and search that the Home Secretary Priti Patel is going to be bringing in. We've actually got Rachel Maclean, the Home Office Minister, joining us in around 15 minutes' time to talk about all this, but loads of emails on it already, pages and pages. Clark's got in touch. More police leads to less crime, but less poverty means barely any crime. That's where their real focus should be, so basically on the economy.
Yeah, Steve says, I don't think the police have done enough to tackle violent crime, but equally, I think that Priti hasn't done enough to help them either. Craig, though, much stronger, says improving their powers is essential. Police can't do their job when stopped by naive regulations that help criminals escape justice.
Robert's got in touch. Police search is a main tool of modern law enforcement. As a policeman, it's important that these changes are embraced but not abused. Trust in the community is the best weapon the police have, yes, but the statistics tend to show where stop and search is brought in, trust declines, and that is the big problem. But really interesting to get the take of a serving police officer. Thank you, Robert, for that.
Yeah, and just finally, Alia says, good move by Priti, but seems like a half-hearted attempt to actually help the police. Body cams must be installed across the force, and investment in community schemes are also vital. So do let us know what you think about police increasing their powers of stop and search because of what the Home Secretary Priti Patel has said. We'll be speaking to a Home Office Minister about that in around about 15 minutes' time.
Do stay with us. We'll have more on the big stories of the day, including the Prime Minister's trip to Northern Ireland. That's after your forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet at times with rain or showers moving northwards across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Well, zooming down to the southwest at lunchtime, and we'll see a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers. The showers possibly could be on the heavy side in places. The southeast will also see a mix of sunny spells and showers. In the sunshine, though, it will be feeling warm and quite humid. The showers may be a little more frequent across Wales, though, with a risk of some heavy and possibly thundery showers around. Moving east into the Midlands, and there'll be more in the way of cloud around this lunchtime, although southern areas will gradually brighten up. Temperatures there will be reaching 18 or 19 Celsius. Skies will also be rather dull across northern England, with some areas of heavy rain around, and it'll also be feeling rather cool in the east, and a breeze comes off the North Sea there. Well, into Scotland, and many parts will have a rather damp lunchtime and some heavy rain in places. It'll feel disappointing for mid-May, with temperatures staying in single figures for some. Northern Ireland, though, will be seeing skies begin to brighten up. However, some further showers will be quickly moving up from the south. Temperatures there more like 15 or 16 Celsius. And the rest of the afternoon will see the brighter skies continue to move northwards, but still with some rain around. And that's how the weather is shaping up for you this Monday morning.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
The Prime Minister vows to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol if the EU doesn't back down ahead of crisis talks in Belfast today.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Monday the 16th of May. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel and Paul. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Yeah, very good morning to you. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson will fly to Belfast today for crisis talks in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government. He's expected to greenlight legislation that could allow ministers to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol.
The leaders of Finland and Sweden have confirmed their intention to join NATO in a historic policy shift for the Nordic countries. Finland's president said that the move represented a new era opening.
Comes amid reports that Russia has lost a third of its invasion force in Ukraine. The latest assessment by the Ministry of Defence also revealed that the Kremlin's campaign in the east of the country is significantly behind schedule.
The Queen received a standing ovation as she arrived at the Royal Windsor Horse Show last night to watch a final performance celebrating her Platinum Jubilee at the event. Her attendance, titled A Gallop Through History, is her second public appearance in 3 days.
Remember, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or if you prefer, you can tweet us at GB News.
And remember, you can always subscribe as well to the GB News channel on YouTube and get all the latest on the big stories that everyone is talking about.
But our top story this morning, Boris Johnson heading to Belfast today for talks with the major Stormont parties in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government.
The Democratic Unionist Party is refusing to enter the Assembly over concerns about the Northern Ireland Protocol, which they argue undermines Northern Ireland's position in the UK by putting a trade border in the Irish Sea.
Well, despite signing up to the deal, the Prime Minister is now poised to publish legislation that would override parts of it.
Well, in an article published late last night in the Belfast Telegraph, the PM said that the protocol was out of date and added our shared objective must be to create the broadest cross-community support for a reformed protocol in 2024.
Comes as the EU warns of retaliatory measures if the UK acts to unilaterally suspend or change the protocol.
Well, earlier on, we spoke to the political commentator Kevin Maher.
I think we'll not hear very much language about tearing up the protocol. I mean, Boris Johnson says in this piece in the Belfast Telegraph today that that's not what he's going to do at all, that the protocol, in effect, is here to stay. And we're now in the language of can the protocol be reformed? Can it be tweaked? Can it be finessed to avoid some of the outcomes that it's seen so far? No, I mean, we've spent probably the last 18 months or so in detailed negotiations with the European Commission on all of this and not got very far. So this has led the government to the point where it's trying to jolt the negotiations, jolt the system by taking these unilateral measures. We're promised the outline of legislation as early as tomorrow with the detail in subsequent days. And I think the government is slightly wary at this point. I think ministers are probably taking some deep breaths to see what the European Union responds with. Now, there's a whole range of scenarios here. One is that publishing legislation is not the same as enacting legislation, and enacting legislation is not the same as using the legislation. So I think the government thinks that there's a kind of a gentle escalation. I think that's probably their hope, that actually they can publish some of these proposals, which may reassure unionists that the government is being pretty firm on Europe and trying to address the protocol, which has obviously had significant effects in terms of decline of trade from Britain to Northern Ireland and an increase in trade on the island of Ireland. Now, for most people, that's neither here nor there, but for unionists, it's highly symbolic, and that's what's stopping the devolved institutions from getting back up and running again. So Boris Johnson is in town today to basically try and get these institutions moving again. He doesn't want a kind of hiatus like we saw last time, where the Assembly and the Executive didn't function for 3 years. So I think he's trying to avoid that scenario by being quite tough and saber-rattling on the protocol. Now, the kind of known unknown is how Europe responds. And as I say, there's a sliding scale of reactions here. And I think what we'll probably see is Europe taking a dim view of any unilateral action, but stopping short of immediate retaliatory measures. I mean, the great fear, and the great fear in government, in the Treasury and the Cabinet Office, is that if Europe were to take retaliatory measures, how deep would that affect the UK economy at a time when we're hovering above recession, and there's lots of issues, obviously, with cost of living. So this is high stakes politics from Boris Johnson, and I suspect what we'll see today is Boris Johnson at his kind of ameliorative best, rather than trying to wind the situation up. I think he'll be trying to calm things down, actually. Boris Johnson has led the DUP up the path on several occasions. I mean, he addressed their party conference before he was Prime Minister in 2018, saying that there would be no hard border in the Irish Sea, come what may. And of course, as Prime Minister, negotiated exactly that. So the DUP are kind of, from their position, fair enough. I think they're probably quite sceptical about Boris Johnson's assurances. So I think this is why the idea of legislation is being brought forward, to put it on the table, to say, there you go. I'm prepared to do this. I'm going to publish a bill. I'm going to put that bill through Parliament, and we'll have those powers ultimately to use if we don't get any further in these negotiations. Now, as I say, there's a whole sliding scale of scenarios here, and the idea of publishing legislation, as I say, is not the same as it going through Parliament in the form that it starts off in. I think this would be very difficult to get through the House of Commons without serious amendment, and I think getting it through the House of Lords would probably be nigh on impossible. So the government at that stage would have to invoke the Parliament Act, which would still take a year then to get these proposals on the statute books. So there's quite a long trail of activity here, and I think in the intervening period, the government is hoping that actually it manages to strike a deal with the European Union to, as you say, reform and tweak the protocol. The protocol's here to stay. You either have a border across the island of Ireland, which nobody wants. And Boris Johnson re-emphasises that point today in his Belfast Telegraph piece. Nobody wants that because not only is it very, very difficult to try and police a 310-mile border, but of course there's huge amounts of symbolism there from the time of the Troubles. And you know, one of the government's red lines in this proposed legislation is that there won't be any infrastructure on the border, on the Irish border. So the only other way of managing these affairs is to have checks, customs checks, goods checks at the ports, which is basically what the protocol does. So rationally, the protocol makes sense. But as I say, there's an attempt to try and tweak and reform and finesse it rather than get rid of it. And that's the message that I think Boris Johnson's taken to the unionists today.
Really interesting stuff there from Kevin Maher. He is an Irish commentator on Irish politics, Northern Ireland politics, etc. Let's go to Belfast now. Speak to our Northern Ireland correspondent, Doogie Beattie, who is live from Stormont for us. Morning to you, Doogie. Just give us an insight. You will have been speaking to many people in the unionist community over there. What is the conversation going to be like between them and Boris Johnson, given the very low level of trust that they have in Boris Johnson after what he said about not putting a border in the Irish Sea and then putting a border in the Irish Sea?
Paul, you've hit it on the head. It is all about credibility. Boris Johnson has absolutely none inside unionist communities here. He said there would be no border. Liz Truss has promised they would sort it out. Gove has promised he would sort it out. Frost has promised he would sort it out. Nothing has been sorted out. But we've got to remember that only 30% of this protocol has yet come in. We're still in the grace period. There's another 70% to come in. It's added about 20% onto our transportation costs here. The amount of goods that's on our shelves has dwindled. So therefore, there's not as big a selection as there was before. So therefore, we are starting to feel the pinch of it, and it will get worse. But as we said on Friday, this pressure was really going to go to Dublin, and that's where it has gone. Simon Coveney, the Foreign Affairs Minister and former Taoiseach, who helped negotiate the protocol, is calling for all sorts. He's saying it will upset the Good Friday Agreement. You can see that the pressure's really on him. But on the other side of that, in Belfast newspapers here, while Boris Johnson is writing in the Belfast Telegraph that the protocol will not go, that it will be tweaked, the loyalist paramilitary group are appearing on the front covers armed and talking about legitimate targets. This is all spiralling very quickly out of control in Northern Ireland. And I think even to the most moderate unionist, they are starting to get quite worried about what is going on here. But I think at the heels of all the hunt is the problem of consent. And I keep on saying this, the only people that have MEPs in Ireland are Sinn Féin and the SDLP through their sister party Fianna Fáil in Dublin. So the European Courts of Justice in that protocol, that's the main sticking point. They are sitting across any divergence between Northern Ireland laws and the UK. So unionists here do not believe they have any skin in this game. They have nothing because they cannot make their own laws. And this place behind is being seen as a colony that just imposes laws that they don't make.
But of course, Dougie, the problem with all of this is that it just fears that whatever solution perhaps Boris Johnson suggests today will breed more discontent somewhere else. So, you know, he tries to appease the DUP, he goes hard on the protocol, and he upsets not only Brussels, perhaps leading to a trade war, but also Washington, who we also want to have a trade deal with. I mean, it's a very, very almost impossible circle to square, or square to circle, if you will.
Absolutely, that is the problem. But you've got to ask yourself, if Europe had to ratify and bring back all their states to vote to sanction Britain, would those former Eastern European blocs that are now looking at a threat from Russia that Britain are protecting, in fact, the very Talis missiles that are doing so much damage to Russian artillery come from here? They're made in Northern Ireland. Would they really vote against it, or would they veto any trade war against Britain? On top of that as well, Joe Biden knows as well as most that everything has to align to make the likes of the Good Friday Agreement happen. Bill Clinton was neutral. Bertie Ahern, the then Taoiseach, was trusted by unionists because he said that the Republic of Ireland had no want for the sovereignty of Northern Ireland. And Britain, then Tony Blair, took the IRA under his wing and said, look, we will make sure that this happens. All those guarantors are no longer there. The Republic of Ireland are players in this game for Europe, and now Joe Biden in America has been seen against the Good Friday Agreement by coming out with, if he turned around and wanted this trade deal to be punished.
OK, Doogie Beattie, thanks very much joining us there from Stormont in Belfast in Northern Ireland, where today the Prime Minister will be heading.
Yeah, we'll have more on that throughout the day here on GB News. It is 12 minutes past 8. The Home Secretary, Priti Patel, is permanently lifting the restrictions on stop and search powers that have been in place since 2014.
Well, let's speak now to Minister for Safeguarding, Rachel McLean, who is in the Home Office, joins us this morning. Very good morning to you. Look, perhaps controversial plans being brought in by Priti Patel. What is it hoped that this will achieve?
Well, what we want to see is increased confidence from the police to bring in these Section 60 powers, ultimately to save lives and keep our streets safer. What we've set out in the Beating Crime Plan is that we are determined to crack down on the scourge of knife crime. I, as a Home Office Minister, I often have to speak to bereaved families who've lost their child, and I can't imagine how awful that can be, that fear that your child may walk out of the door and not come back because they're a victim of knife crime. So this is a really helpful tool. It does allow the police to put the Section 60 in place where they believe there will be a risk of serious violence, and we believe it will ultimately keep people safer and save lives.
In the year to March, according to Home Office figures, there were 9,230 stop and searches. Do you know what percentage of those resulted in arrests?
Out of that figure, I don't know, but I do know that we have taken 50,000 knives off the street in that time, and we've arrested 150,000 additional suspects. And so it is clear that the work that we are carrying out in the Home Office is bearing down on these statistics, and we have seen a reduction in stabbings as a result of that. However, we clearly need to do more, which is why we've listened to our policing partners and why we've taken these actions.
The number of stop and search, 9,230 stop and searches in the year to March 2021, 4% of them resulted in arrests, and that's the same as the previous year. So it doesn't seem like stop and searches necessarily results in more arrests, and certainly not more being charged.
Well, out of all those people, there were people arrested, and suspects were arrested out of those numbers that you've just mentioned. But clearly we need to do more. Stop and search is one tool, but there are a range of other measures that we are introducing and working through as part of the Beating Crime Plan, including bearing down on crime in all its forms. We're putting those long-term measures in place to actually divert young people away from a life of crime. So it's an overall system response. But stop and search, to be clear, it's very important. It's what the police have asked for. They've asked for these measures. We've listened to the police, and we're backing them to continue cracking down on knife crime in our cities and streets.
Rachel McLean, I want to ask you now about the cost of living crisis that we as a nation are all enduring. Are our viewers and our listeners all too aware of, what's more to come on this very issue? But I understand this morning you've been giving advice to people who are struggling that people should take on more hours or move to a better paid job. I have to say, I think that's going to fall on, very unresponsive ears, if I may suggest. Do you want to retract or change that statement at all?
I think you've slightly taken that out of context. What we have provided is tailored support. First of all, we provided holistic support, £22 billion of support across the economy. We've also doubled that support that's available in local areas. And the remarks that I made about people taking on more hours are part of our plan to help people get back into work. We've got a very good record of helping people get back into work after the COVID crisis, and also to enable them to, if they want to, and it's right for them, to increase their skills, which is why we have our job coaches in the job centres they will be the best place to work with that individual to assess their situation and help them if it's right for them. Clearly it's not right for everybody, but what we've heard in the past is that sometimes it has been difficult for people to take on more hours or move to a full-time job. But this is about an overall package of measures, working with our job coaches in the job centres and making sure that we've got that targeted support available, whatever the individual situation is.
That package of measures that you've just mentioned, is that enough?
So it's evolving all the time, and we, as I said, we've put in £22 billion worth, and some of those measures are being phased in. So we've taken action on energy bills, on council tax. We are actually taking people out of some of those tax brackets as well, and there is further help coming later on in the autumn. But the Chancellor's always been clear that he will keep the whole situation under review. We saw that that was his approach during the global pandemic, an unprecedented shock to our economy. So he's working, as are all cabinet ministers and our all government ministers, to look at what further steps can be taken.
OK, and finally, just before we let you go, I have to ask you about the Prime Minister's trip to Belfast. Obviously a deeply worrying situation with democratic process all but ground to a halt there. Is there consensus on the way that Westminster is dealing with this? Do you think it is right that the UK should take unilateral action? Do you think the Cabinet is fully supportive of that position?
Well, clearly the situation is urgent. That's why the Prime Minister is going to Belfast, to get round the table with all the parties involved. We are seeing an impact now on Northern Ireland. All parties, I think, are agreed that the protocol in its current format doesn't work. And that's why we need to continue these dialogues and find the way through this.
All right, thank you for your time this morning, Minister. That is Rachel Maclean, a Home Office Minister. Do let us know what you think about that interview, by the way, what she had to say. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Lots of you getting in touch with us this morning on a range of topics.
Well, yeah, on Stop and Search, lots of people getting in touch. Ryan saying, I think we should be focusing on why people are becoming more violent. We should be tackling the cause to help the police, who already do amazing work.
Yeah, Alistair says we should always be recording the police. We need to protect ourselves if these changes really do happen. We as citizens need to protect our freedom. Keep your views coming into us, gbviews at gbnews.uk. Let's speak to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who can bring us the latest. Tom, first of all, what did you make of what the Minister had to say?
Well, particularly on the big issue of the day that you asked at the end there, the Northern Ireland Protocol, the reason why the Prime Minister has travelled to Belfast this morning and indeed wrote in the Belfast Telegraph last night. This seems to be a very significant moment, and it's interesting that there's sort of positive language being used by senior ministers at this time, trying to create that sort of spirit of cooperation, despite the pretty weighty sword of Damocles that is hanging over in the prospect of new legislation tomorrow, as early as tomorrow perhaps, that may well sever that agreement, or at least parts of it. So it's interesting seeing the difference between the language used and potentially the actions that may be taken.
Yeah, and look, that legislation to be announced, we expect by the Foreign Secretary tomorrow. Just explain to people exactly what that legislation will change or perhaps remove from within the protocol, and what the consequences or implications of that are there in terms of an international agreement that we thrashed out, that we signed. I mean, does that undermine our position internationally?
Well, there's two different ways to look at this. The UK government has, for the past almost a year, said that the conditions by which Article 16 of this agreement, which allows for unilateral action if there's trade diversion or if there's significant dissent between communities, that's a sort of safety valve article of the protocol. And the government says the conditions by which they could trigger that article have been met because of the trade diversion that has taken place. The government also points to Article 13(8), which within the protocol talks about the idea that other agreements can supersede this agreement. It sort of speaks as if the protocol, it may not be a finished article in and of itself. So the government will be saying that it's acting under these two provisions within the agreement. However, to other people, that isn't what the government's doing. To other people, it looks like the government is simply tearing up something they agreed only a year and a half ago. So there are two different ways to look at this, although no doubt there will have been an incredible amount of work from FCDO lawyers going over exactly what can be possible, what they can lay before the House tomorrow that will at least look like it's in keeping with what is exactly required of the government. However, putting forward legislation is not the same as actually ripping up the protocol.
Yeah.
We're not expecting the protocol to be ripped up tomorrow. And the EU have actually said they're not going to act off the back of legislation that would enable ministers to do something. It's only as if those ministers were to then act on the powers that legislation gives them that the EU may respond. So we are not yet at that incredible crunch point, but we are inching towards the edge.
It's about using leverage, right? Just talk about it a little bit, kind of talk about introducing legislation, and there's going to be a lot of time before it's enacted. And if we just talk about it a bit, then we can kind of ratchet up the leverage with the EU.
These negotiations have been going on for 16 months now.
Yeah.
16 months to try and sort out the protocol, which clearly has lost the consent of the unionist community in Northern Ireland. I think there's a sense in government that the EU is not coming to the table, doesn't see a sense of urgency here. And you're absolutely right. This new legislation, this visit to Belfast, indeed all of these actions from the government are about making this a crunch point, about making a deadline perhaps, because after all, delays don't make deals, deadlines do.
Yeah. Tom, thank you. That's our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. There
that is. I like that. As a journalist, we love a deadline.
We'll have more on Boris Johnson's visit to Belfast throughout the day here on GB News.
A little bit later than normal. Let's bring you up to date on the headlines. And as we were just saying, Boris Johnson is to hold those emergency talks with Northern Ireland's leaders later in a bid to break the Stormont deadlock. The Assembly's been plunged into crisis in the wake of the local elections, with the DUP refusing to join a devolved government. It's in protest over the Northern Ireland Protocol and post-Brexit trading arrangements.
Statue of Baroness Margaret Thatcher has been egged less than 2 hours after being erected in her hometown in Lincolnshire. A protester can be seen throwing eggs at the memorial, which was delayed due to the COVID pandemic shortly after it was lowered into place in Grantham yesterday. Lincolnshire police say they received a report of criminal damage, but no arrests have been made.
The Queen received a standing ovation at a star-studded event marking the last day of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. Her Majesty was smiling broadly as she arrived at an arena close to Windsor Castle, with the audience cheering as she walked to the royal box. Now, the leaders of Finland and Sweden have both confirmed that they intend to join NATO in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, the Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said joining the alliance was best for Sweden's and the Swedish people's security.
Well, it comes as the latest Ministry of Defence briefing reveals that Russia may have lost a third of its forces since the start of the invasion.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by the Outreach Director at the Pinsker Centre, Tom Klaus Pritchard. Tom, welcome to GB News. Good to see you this morning. First of all, what do you make of Sweden's application to join NATO?
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Paul, Isabel. I think it comes as good news. I think Europe and the West as a whole is waking up to the threat of Russia and other threats around the world, such as China, and putting more emphasis on the element of defence in government policy. Sweden is following Finland's lead in this. The Finnish Parliament will meet today, where they'll ratify Finland's entry into NATO. I don't expect that will be very difficult. I think it will be. I think it might take time because a lot of MPs will want to get their airtime in the Finnish Parliament to discuss it. But I think it will pass with a very, very large majority, and Sweden's following suit as well.
Of course, the whole sort of reason that President Putin gave for his invasion into Ukraine was because of this fear of NATO creeping up to his border. And the irony in all of this has been much, discussed, is that he's now more encircled than NATO than he was before. I mean, assuming this all goes through. Is there a danger that we're provoking the bear by expanding NATO when it was a stated cause of this invasion into Ukraine?
Well, it's certainly true that President Putin has made a tremendous rod for his own back in all of this. If Finland and Sweden, or any other country for that matter, wish to join NATO, they are sovereign nations. it is their right to do so. We had North Macedonia join NATO just a couple of years ago. That went very well, and they're an asset to our alliance, as will Finland and Sweden be. So this has been triggered by Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. That is the only reason why Finland and Sweden are upending decades or centuries worth of neutrality on the world stage. That is the only reason why they're doing it. It's Vladimir Putin's fault, essentially, that they're doing it.
He's calling it a mistake. Should we be worried about him? Is that a threat? What can he do?
I do not believe that Vladimir Putin will want to risk war directly with NATO. That will be World War III. I don't think he wants to do that, which is why, I mean, predominantly NATO is a defence alliance, it's not an offence alliance. And for that reason, we will only trigger Article 5 of NATO, of the treaty, if Finland or Sweden, or for anyone else for that matter in NATO, is invaded. Unless Russia invades Finland, Russia has nothing to fear.
Right.
Okay. We have to leave it there. Tom Klaus Pritchard, thank you so much for coming into the studio this morning from the Pinkster Centre, which is a think tank supporting free speech and open debate. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just coming up to 8:30. Coming up Money Monday, our consumer expert Kate Hardcastle will be here explaining how to shop smarter when it comes to big-ticket items. All that coming up in just a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
You're watching GB News Breakfast. Good to have you with us this morning. It is exactly 8:30. Let's bring you up to date with what is happening this Monday morning. Boris Johnson holding emergency talks with Northern Ireland's leaders later in a bid to break the stormont deadlock. The Assembly's been plunged into crisis in the wake of the local elections. The DUP refusing to join a devolved government. It's in protest over the Northern Ireland Protocol and post-Brexit trading arrangements.
The Home Secretary has permanently lifted restrictions on the police in the use of stop and search powers. Priti Patel announced the easing of the measures, which gives officers the right to search people without reasonable grounds in an area where they expect serious violence.
The Queen received a standing ovation at a star-studded event marking the last day of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. Her Majesty, as you can see there, smiling broadly as she arrived at an arena close to Windsor Castle, with the audience cheering as she walked to the royal box.
OK, OK, later today, the Treasury Committee is going to be meeting to discuss the increasing rate of inflation as the country continues to battle the cost of living crisis.
But our money-saving hero, Kate Hardcastle, says that shopping smarter could be the key to beating the squeeze. Kate, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, both.
Is it possible to shop even harder, to save even more right now?
We've got lots of tips coming up over the weeks to come, particularly about how you go into those supermarkets. I mean, I think the top tip is stay in control. If you know what your finances look like and you're not stuffing those bills in the drawers, if you're aware and alert when you're going in the supermarket, understanding what a good offer looks like, I think you can navigate it. That's not to say I don't understand just how challenging it is for some families out there right now. Of course it is. These are hard times. But I think we sometimes do take our eye off the ball when it comes to spending.
OK, is it true that we are actually spending less to help us tackle the cost of living crisis at the moment?
Absolutely, yeah. And it makes sense, doesn't it? We all know that if we hear that news story pumping through the radio and TVs every day from you guys, look, it's difficult out there, you're going to start reflecting and thinking, do I really need to buy this now? Absolutely, people still need to buy some big-ticket items, but that's where we've dipped the most. That's where we've moved away. So we're focusing on food, fuel, and the necessaries rather than the nice-to-haves.
Right, nice-to-haves being new TV, new car. What about sort of necessities like engagement rings? People are still getting married, but perhaps don't want to spend the money. I mean, are there ways of shopping smarter when it comes to sort of necessary luxuries?
There are. So even if you need to buy those big-ticket items, which might seem a stretch right now, as long as we've got the money to do so, it's about shopping smarter. So things like smartphones, for instance. If you have that fear of missing out and you want the latest range, the latest product coming out and you're on the wait list, you're going to be paying a premium. If you're prepared to take a retired model or a model that's actually perhaps going to move to second place in terms of age, you're going to get a better deal. And you're going to get a better deal if you buy it just after that new phone's come out, because there's going to be all the hoopla around the new phone, and then you're going to go in and put your offer in for that sort of second retired item. Same with TVs. So there are times of year that are better to buy items than others, and we call that shopping against the tide. Okay. If you want to buy garden furniture, don't buy it right now. The minute the sunshine comes out... Yeah.
I've just been thinking I need a new garden set.
Of course
there you go, and that's how they work, isn't it?
But there's never any in the shops in the winter.
Yeah. Well, it can be hard to find them. There are definitely always deals online now. That's where online has really come to play. The reason that we don't see these items in stores is there's a limited amount of retail space. They clear them out, they put the Christmas trees in, that's how it goes. Yeah. But you can still use online for that. It's about, not buying at the point of everyone wants it now. The demand goes up. World Cup and TV spring to mind. Right. Don't pop out trying to think, well, we've got everyone coming round, we're going to get that brilliant extra large TV for the screen. Try and think about when the new model's coming out. Generally tends to be about July and August with TVs. So then, again, are you prepared to take a slightly older model, still all the bells and whistles, and get a better deal? And when it comes to engagement rings, I think someone here's just got engaged.
Yeah, Showbiz reporter who's coming in later, Ellie, has just been taken to the Palace of Versailles, just outside Paris. We'll be talking to her about that in an hour's time, just under an hour, yes. Was it a good time for him to buy a ring?
Well, I don't know when he bought it. It's certainly a diamond and a half, isn't it? Look at that.
Yeah, there she is, Ellie, bless her.
But again, when's the most pivotal time, important time for people to propose? They do it around Valentine's, they do it around Christmas, and that's when we start to see the stock go up. There is a lot of pressure in terms of the jewellery market at the minute, particularly diamonds, because of what we're seeing in terms of the crisis. So again, would you be prepared to have a piece of vintage jewellery? Would you be prepared to have different stones other than diamonds? There's lots out there now. And I think the perception, when I was getting engaged, the idea of having a second-hand ring, oh my goodness. Now I think there's much more open mind, different ways of buying, different ways of consuming, and we like the sustainability element of it too.
But that's through necessity, isn't it? It's not so much what you'd ideally want, because it does feel like it's similar to a discussion I was having a few weeks back about second-hand wedding dresses. It's kind of tainted with that, with what may have happened, because that person's passed on that engagement ring or that wedding dress from a relationship that didn't work. It feels like
not necessarily. Loads of people I know sold them because they just wanted a bit of extra cash. Their wedding dress, that is, not their engagement rings. But on the issue of engagement rings, how can the price fluctuate? Because I thought a diamond's value is based on its clarity, its cut, all the rest of it. I'm assuming that if you buy it 2 weeks before Valentine's Day and you sold it 2 weeks after, it would still be the same value, no?
Everything's based on supply and demand.
Okay.
It might not be a huge amount, but we saw this happen in the car market when we actually started to see a massive return to people getting back to work. People had sold cars in lockdown and then they were after a vehicle to get going again. Even the second-hand market saw that supply-demand issue. So yes, you'll always have a return value in high-worth items, not as much in electrical goods because they do fade with time in terms of their value. But yes, it is about the buying time. Buy against the tide.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you do your Christmas shopping just after Christmas?
I do my Christmas shopping through the year, relevant to the list I've set out with the budget in mind I'm prepared to pay for each person.
Oh, wow, you
Whenever
are
so organised.
really organised.
Come to the land of Hardcastle. You need to see just how organised it is. It's spreadsheet galore.
I need to buy my Christmas tree now, is what you're saying, basically.
Of course you do.
Yeah. Do your Christmas shopping right now, folks. There you go.
No. Right, Money Mondays, they're here to stay. Kate Hardcastle, we love it. Thank you for joining us on the programme. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah, Kate Hardcastle there. Get involved, join in the conversation as well if you've got any money-saving tips as well. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Up next, we're going through the papers. We're joined again for one last romp through them with Chris Akabusi and Liz Kirsch. I'll see you in a moment.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News. Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Right, it's 8:40, time to go through the papers with the broadcaster Liz Kershaw and the Olympian Chris Akabusi. And Chris, you want to start with the story about dementia symptoms, and we were talking to a professor about this a little bit earlier in the programme, trying to make sure you spot it early, absolutely key.
Yeah, I think the Mail's done a real good piece there on dementia, the things to look looking for, because it's very easy to sort of think, oh, it's just I'm getting old and, I'm a little bit forgetful, I've just mislaid my keys. But no, there are some very serious signs of dementia. If you can't remember what you were told an hour ago, for example, that might be a sign, as opposed to, for most of us, as you get older, you might forget what you did a couple of months ago. Putting objects in strange places, all of a sudden you find your stuff in the fridge, what's it doing in the fridge? Yeah. Anyway, there's a whole list. But I got keyed into this by watching 3 films over lockdown. One was, oh gosh, I mean...
He's doing it for comedy effect. One of them was Father.
Yeah.
It was Father.
Thank you very much. Thank you
You
very
can't
much.
write that, I'm sorry.
So Liz is here to look after you.
I'm his carer.
Liz Akabusi's carer is here.
We're not laughing at dementia, we're laughing at Chris.
No, absolutely no. No, but Father, Anthony Hopkins, he played the father, and it was just amazing. And for me, it was just the pressure he put under his daughter, and I've got, two.
No, I know,
And I just myself, if that was my daughters, they had to deal with me hallucinating, seeing strange things, not believing them, always challenging them. It was just so traumatic. It was a tough watch, but that really woke me up to Dementia. And another one was called Still Alice.
Oh, I've seen
where,
that.
and she, a professional woman, and the way that she was using all these coping strategies just to try to stay on track. But she knew she was losing.
And that was early onset, and that's another level of frightening.
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you recognise it, and there's so many things that can bring it on. Stress at work, obviously a head injury or stroke, and generally we're all getting older. So the chances are when we get into our 80s and 90s, that's one of the things that can sort of take us.
Liz. The really traumatic thing about it is when people who are suffering dementia, when they can't remember their loved ones.
Oh yeah.
Sure, that's the really distressing.
Oh
part,
yeah. I remember my granddad didn't know who I was, and then I remember my grandma turning round to me and saying, I don't know who you are, but you'd make a really good nurse.
Aww.
I thought she didn't even know. I'm a granddaughter now. She's gone. It's really sad.
Yeah.
I don't know what help's available, though. That's the trouble at the moment. So if you identify, if you think my friend or family member has got early signs of dementia, what can you get help?
Yeah.
What's available? What can they do?
Well, I mean, of course, people are living with dementia all the time, so there's a lot of things. But there's no cure. I think that's the challenge, is that, once it starts kicking in,
it's about managing it.
Yeah, it's about managing it. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's about managing it,
Liz, should we talk about Russian hackers? This is Inside the
Yes.
Times. Really interesting twist on everything that happened over the weekend.
Look at me pulling my dress down.
Get down to business now.
Well, we've talked about Eurovision and we've talked about how politicised it's been for donkey's years, and then we saw that. I wish I'd put a bet on at Ladbrokes or something last week, Ukraine to win.
Yeah.
But the public of Europe, including the UK, because we are European, wanted to show the support for the Ukraine. Fantastic. That's done by public vote. And apparently Russia couldn't interfere with the jury's votes. But because the public vote was telephonic, they tried to hack it, apparently. The hacking group Killnet tried to crash the live streaming of the final and the voting by the public. And it was held in Italy, and Italy's postal police, which fights cyber attacks, managed to rebut it. So Russia was even trying to undermine a huge cultural event. Or perhaps they foresaw that Ukraine would be supported and celebrated, even though it was through a supposedly music festival, and wanted to undermine that. But there's a song by the Stranglers called Nuclear Device, and it goes, I don't care which way you vote, because my gerrymandering always works. It's quite prophetic, but that, and we've been told, haven't we, that Russia would try and hack into the NHS, water supplies. They don't have to invade to have an impact on our lives now. Yeah. Remote control.
Yeah, it's about, it's soft power.
Yeah,
So it's a threat.
It's not that soft if you...
Well, no, indeed. Right, moving on. Chris.
Yes.
What's this about UFOs?
Oh, yeah.
I've missed this.
Yeah,
We've all missed this.
Yeah. So this was in the... is it the Star? Yes, the Daily Star. UFOs, the truth is coming out there. It's interesting. For me, well, I've got an experience, but... I know that generally in the Western world, we don't trust anything that is not within the realm of our five senses. So we're very scientifically orientated. And yet we do know there's much things outside of our realm. For example, bees see in ultraviolet. Now, just because we can't see in ultraviolet doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so I had an experience, it was probably a decade ago now, where I was nighttime, something flew in a funny pattern outside my window.
Was it
exactly,
a bee?
Exactly.
You've lost me already.
And then, so I watched it there for about a couple of minutes, right, hovering like that. And then I said, look, I'm going to get a picture of this. Because after a couple of minutes, I thought, it's still there. I'm going to get a picture of this. And then it just zipped off. And I thought to myself, OK, what aircraft... Because I live quite close to Luton Airport.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, light aircraft or something.
No, but the flight patterns... But it's exactly what I'm saying. So but you're quite...
Sceptical, isn't she? Yeah, you can see her.
Sceptical.
But unless you can, because it's not inside your five ranges, your five senses, you're not going to believe it. But there is so much more to this world.
Yeah, if there is, it's probably likely to be a few cells or some kind of organism. It's not going to be somebody flying a little spaceship with a green...
I didn't say it was a spaceship. So that's your imagination now. And because phenomenology, you're now just extrapolating your limited view of the world. I'm not talking... No.
You feel free.
No, I'm not having a go at you. But, because if it's not inside your world, it doesn't exist. So, and things with language, if I say something, you've now gone on a journey. I didn't say it's an aircraft. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, Liz, it sounds like you're open-minded to what...
I am, because I agree with Chris. I think there are... No, there are forces we don't understand, because we have... look at the universe, we have tiny brains. But if you think about, just over 100 years ago, the idea of being able to walk into a room, touching something on the wall and it being illuminated was just a fantasy.
Yeah, or even one of these.
Yeah. And the fact that this was science fiction, the fact that in Thunderbirds in the early 60s, Lady Penelope could communicate with the Tracy brothers. Her face came up on it. No, it can now. You can talk to anybody. So I don't think you should dismiss anything. It's arrogant to think we know about all the forces in the universe. And I often think of somebody that I haven't thought of for ages, and next thing is the phone will ring.
Yeah.
And the other day, I was just thinking about somebody and going to visit them and looking at a map of where they lived, and the phone rang, it was them.
Yeah.
I think there's some kind of telepathy that one day we'll harness.
Well, we only use 20% of our brains, apparently.
Well, speak for yourself.
Well, I say that. I'm functioning on about 1% of my brain,
No, but I saw a UFO, in the literal sense, unidentified flying object. It was on the M62. I was only 22, and it was late at night, and there were all these police cars on the bridge with all the blue lights, like about 10, and in the sky there was the old corny 3 red lights in a triangle. Honestly. And they were all standing there, looking up at it. And then when I got to my flat in Liverpool, I rang Merseyside Police and said what was going on, and they said they denied all knowledge of it.
Do you know what? I'm a bit jealous. I feel a bit left out now. You've seen one. You've seen one.
Well, I've seen something.
I do know a football reporter when I was working at a radio station a long time ago. He called in. To call in, I said, well, what happened in the game? And he said, I was driving to take the plane somewhere and I saw one in the sky cue a whole phone in with people who'd seen one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, every time you mention it on the radio.
No, yeah, but look, the fact that we see lots of things that we don't quite know what it is, and we discount it. Because if it's got no relevance to our life, we discount it. It doesn't mean it's not out there. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Be open-minded is what...
Amen! All right.
Or just buy a bird book and you might be able to identify some of the flying objects that you see.
The truth is out there.
Ultraviolet C and B.
I'll leave it there. Chris Akabusi, Liz Kershaw, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for seeing you both again.
Yeah, let us know what you've seen in the skies that you couldn't identify. 10 to 9 it is. Let's bring you up to date with some real news this morning, right?
Yeah, the Open University is to launch an online course on Ukrainian culture and language to try and help families in the UK who are hosting refugees. The move comes with a range of measures to support Ukrainians coming over here, such as English language courses and mental health support.
Statue of Baroness Margaret Thatcher has been egged less than 2 hours after being erected in her hometown in Lincolnshire. A protester can be seen throwing eggs at the memorial, which was delayed due to the COVID pandemic, shortly after it was lowered into place in Grantham yesterday. Lincolnshire police say they received a report of criminal damage, but no arrests have been made.
1 in 4 people with dementia have symptoms for more than 2 years before they're diagnosed. The Alzheimer's Society suggests the signs are too often dismissed as simply old age. It's produced a new checklist with the Royal College of GPs to help people identify symptoms that include memory problems, becoming withdrawn and getting lost. Fair play to Chris for revealing that experience. There's way more to the nature of reality than our five senses. That's according to Kevin. And Len Baker says, ask the team, why would a UFO need lights? Good question.
Good questions. We're very open-minded on this programme. Yeah, exactly. OK, I'm very open-minded on this programme. Some people are more cynical.
Oh, here we go.
It's
So
a healthy
one more's
cynicism.
come in quickly.
Oh, here we go.
Charles says, I've seen many clouds I've not been able to identify, and I'm no meteorologist. Exactly. You know. Anyway,
Clouds.
we move on.
Indeed. Singer Britney Spears, should we talk about her?
Yeah.
Has revealed she's lost her baby with her fiancé, Sam Asghar, a month after announcing her news on social media. As well as Britney, Women's Hour presenter Emma Barnett has also spoken out about miscarrying her IVF baby.
Well, we're joined in the studio by Dr. Sarah Kyatt now with lots of advice for anyone at home who might be going through the devastating impacts of a miscarriage. And look, certainly in Britney's case, we don't know how far along she was, but the statistics in early pregnancy, so for the first 10 weeks or 12 weeks, it's about a quarter of pregnancies end in a miscarriage, quite a high number.
Exactly, and I think people often don't realise quite how high it is, and the NHS quotes 1 in 8 in totality, so it is a high number of pregnancies, unfortunately. But a majority of pregnancies, we don't even know that you're pregnant by that point.
You saw the article where she was talking about her IVF battles. She'd been through 5 rounds of IVF. She finally got pregnant after that child. And then just before Christmas, she had a miscarriage. And I think miscarriage is difficult for anyone, right? But for somebody who's desperately trying to conceive, just so heartbreaking.
So difficult. And I think it's really important to know that there is support out there for people that are going through this, because it's emotionally and physically draining. And so if you are going through that kind of thing, speak to your midwife, speak to your GP, reach out to charities and online support groups, things like Tommy's, and do get the support and help you need.
Yeah, difficult to speak it, or even to decide to speak in the first place. A lot of people like to keep it to themselves.
Yeah, and I think, people like Emma Barnett have, she specifically said that she wanted to talk about it, not to get, sympathy about it, but more so that other women out there know that this does happen and people are there to help if you need it.
What is really sad about the whole process of a miscarriage is the advice that people often get. There's nothing GPs can do, but in my experience, if you speak to a GP, they say to you, just have to wait at home and wait it out and see what happens. And as a patient, many patients often say, well, I want to go and have a scan, and the doctors say, but there's no point, because you might have a heartbeat today, but you might be having a miscarriage and it could be several days. And that was just, for a lot of people, that's quite a surprising thing, that there's nothing they can do, just sit at home and wait it out.
So it really does depend on your specific pregnancy, how many weeks pregnant you are. Some people do need scans to see what's going on, and also to see if there are any kind of tissues of pregnancy that still remain there. And so it is a really sensitive subject, and you're right. And I think, some people possibly don't present it as well as they should to women that are going through such a hard time. It's a really difficult time. I think sensitivity is needed.
Would your advice be to somebody at home to go and get a scan if they're worried, or what would be advice? Go and see your GP, or what should people do if they're at all worried about their pregnancy?
I do always suggest, speak to a GP, speak to a midwife. In general, and certainly I would, if a woman said, I want a scan, I personally would always give that scan in that situation, because a lot of it is about anxiety as well and managing that. And I think it's cruel sometimes to make people wait if they're really struggling.
Yeah. And you said that there's a range of support and measures in place. Is there enough? Could the government do more? Or do you think the government's got it right on this?
Look, I think there's always more that can go into it. I think there's actually more that can go in terms of the research as to why people miscarry so much. At the moment we say often we don't know the cause, and telling a woman that is also very hard. A lot of the time it's about, women think, is it something that I've done? And in the majority of cases, that's absolutely not true. It's usually, a chromosomal issue with the baby, so a problem with the genetic building blocks. And it's nothing that you've personally done, but to turn around to a woman and say, we don't know why this has happened, can be really hard. And I think more funding can go into why this is happening.
Is there anything people can take, any supplements or anything that women can do to try and make sure that they've got the best chances of it getting to full term? I read a while ago, and this is off the top of my head now, there was some research into iodine, I think, as some suggestion that iodine tablets might help women. I don't know if that's come to fruition.
No, it's not. The only vitamins and supplements that are specifically recommended for women throughout the pregnancies are vitamin D and folic acid. The rest is all within research grounds to try and find out if there is anything else. But I think I wouldn't recommend anyone going out and purchasing anything other than those two unless recommended by their healthcare professional.
Good advice, Dr. Sarah. Really difficult subject, but thank you so much for coming in, and hopefully if anyone's watching this and a little unsure, they'll feel reassured by that. Thank you.
Yeah. It is GB News Breakfast. Good to have you with us this morning. In fact, stay with us. We're talking through the top stories of the day with Andrew Pearce straight after the weather.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Prime Minister vows to amend the Northern Ireland Protocol if the EU don't back down ahead of crisis talks in Belfast today.
Very good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock on Monday, the 16th of May. This is Breakfast on GB News with Isabel Webster and Paul Hawkins. Here's what's leading the news this Monday morning.
So the Prime Minister is to fly to Belfast today for crisis talks in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government. He's expected to greenlight legislation that could allow ministers to tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Leaders of Finland and Sweden have confirmed their intention to join NATO in a historic policy shift for the Nordic countries. Finland's president said that the move represented a new era opening.
It comes amid reports Russia has lost a third of its invasion force in Ukraine. The latest assessment by the Ministry of Defence also revealed that the Kremlin's campaign in the east of the country is significantly behind schedule.
And the Queen received a standing ovation as she arrived at the Royal Windsor Horse Show last night to watch a performance celebrating the Platinum Jubilee. Her attendance at the event, which was called a gallop through history, is her second public appearance in 3 days.
And remember, as always, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Yep, and you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest news and opinions.
So our top story this morning, Boris Johnson will head to Belfast for talks with the major Stormont parties in an attempt to restore Northern Ireland's government.
Yeah, the Democratic Unionist Party is refusing to enter the Assembly over concerns about the Northern Ireland Protocol, which they argue undermines Northern Ireland's position in the UK by putting a trade border in the Irish Sea.
Well, despite signing up to the deal, the Prime Minister is now poised to publish legislation that would override parts of it.
In an article published late last night in the Belfast Telegraph, the PM said that the protocol was out of date, adding, "Our shared objective must be to create the broadest cross-community support for a reformed protocol in 2024.
Well, all this comes as the European Union warns of retaliatory measures if the UK acts to unilaterally suspend or change the protocol.
Yeah, well, joining us now to go through the big stories of the day is Andrew Pearce, the consultant editor for the Daily Mail. Andrew, really good to see you. It's going to be some difficult conversations for the Prime Minister to have in Belfast today, not least with the Unionists.
Yeah, look, he's going to tell them they've got to get together, they've got to get the Northern Ireland Assembly working again, they've got to devolve government. It's not working because the DUP will not support the election of a speaker. It's because they hate the protocol, they want it gone. But Sinn Féin, who won those elections in Northern Ireland a few weeks ago, support the protocol being in place. So this is a very difficult position because the British government in Westminster doesn't like the protocol, but the people who got the largest party in the Northern Ireland Assembly do like the protocol. So this is the dilemma he's got. And it's there, the protocol, for the simple reason Northern Ireland is the only part of the United Kingdom that faces a country in the European Union, which is Ireland. So they've got to have the same rules that apply to the rest of the European Union, France, Belgium, Sweden, which means effectively Northern Ireland is still in the single market and still subject to the rules and regulations and the petty bureaucracy, may I say, of the EU.
Look, frankly, it is a big mess. Eamonn would tell you if he was here, and lots of people emailing saying, where is Eamonn? Is he actually trying to sort out the protocol in
He'd probably
Belfast?
do a better job than Boris.
He's in Northern Ireland at the moment, but he will be back later on this week. He'll tell you that in Northern Ireland, if you head there, Boris Johnson's name is mud because many people feel that he's betrayed them, whichever side of the argument you are. He's going to be wading through treacle, really, today.
He is, and you have to remember Northern Ireland voted to stay in the European Union, but we are part of the United Kingdom, so they have to go along with it. But the trouble is, the European Union can't bear the fact we voted for Brexit, and they are clogging every single good that goes into Northern Ireland from us with all sorts of red tape, restrictions, far more than they need to. They say they'll get rid of some of them. The European Court is still holds sway over everything that happens there. So it's a complete mess. But in my view, they'll find a compromise because, remember, there was trouble in Northern Ireland for decades. Bombs going off on the mainland here. And Tony Blair's government, I'm not always a great fan of Tony Blair, but they pulled off an amazing peace deal called the Good Friday Agreement. So if they can sort that out, they can sort this out.
But that Good Friday Agreement, central part of that, it was easy to facilitate in a way. I mean, it was difficult to bring about, no doubt about it, but it could work because the UK was a part of the European Union. That's the tricky bit now. And you can't. There's so many people to please with the protocol. Someone's got to lose out. And at the moment, it's the Unionists. Next, it could be the EU.
Well, what the long-term problem could be, actually, that we get a united Ireland, which a lot of people might think is the logical thing anyway. It's been a construct for about 100 years anyway. But one of the things... So the British government in the last budget, which mini-budget, which, by the way, I thought was hopeless because they developed national insurance and did all sorts of things I wouldn't have done, but they did say they'd slash VAT on solar panels. But because of the European Union's state aid rules, that can't apply in Northern Ireland because they're in the single market. Do these people want to sort out climate change or what? This is where they're being completely rigid and inflexible. And that's what when he talks to the Unionists and the Sinn Féin, they've got to show some flexibility. But by God, so is the European Union.
Fingers crossed, it can all get sorted.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Her Majesty the Queen. On the front of your newspaper today, I should point out, looking radiant, happy and simply glorious. And it has to be said, there was some doubt about whether we'd see her looking this well, after the recent cancellations, and what a happy occasion it was.
Yeah, and I love the gag by the comedian there. Says, thank you for choosing the Royal Windsor Horse Show over the state opening of Parliament. If you had a choice, what would you do if you were the Queen?
Well, yeah.
She loves horses.
She does.
We know that one of the first papers she reads in the morning is the Racing Post, so she can look at the tips. Some of her horses have been at the Royal Windsor Horse Show and they've won there. So she was there on Friday for an hour, but yesterday, in her full glory, looking radiant, smiling, never happier than when she's amongst horses. She's just up the road from Windsor Castle. And to those who say, well, why didn't she do the big job, the state opening of Parliament? It's drafty, it's cold, it's pretty bad for people who have got mobility issues. There's lots of steps, and that throne that she'd have to sit in for an hour is really uncomfortable. When you're 96 and we know she's got mobility problems, I can tell you it's uncomfortable because I've sat in it.
Oh, right, have you?
Yeah.
When was that?
Not really supposed to, so I won't say them all.
Right, OK,
I thought you were going to say you'd won the crown.
No, not that one, yeah. But so I think good luck to her, and she looked great, and I think it gives us great hope that we will see her on the balcony during the great 70th anniversary celebrations in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, we so hope that.
To happen.
Yeah.
But what was interesting, such a warm reception, huge cheers, everybody thrilled to see her
Standing
making her way.
ovation.
Yeah, standing ovation. And yet, Prince William at the weekend, what a disgrace that people were booing him at the FA Cup final.
It was the Liverpool fans, it wasn't everybody. Prince
A
William,
minority of Liverpool fans, I imagine.
But they did it, and they were jeering during the national anthem. Well, that's a homage to the country, the Commonwealth and the Queen. So they were effectively jeering the Queen. Why they're taking out on Prince William and her...
I can't think of another occasion where he's been booed.
First
I
time,
can't,
never.
either.
No, and he carried it off with great dignity. He'd have heard it.
Is it because he's a Villa fan?
There is that. There is that. I'm not convinced he's a football fan at all, because those Royals, they like polo and posh sports. They don't really. But, I mean, he's president or chairman of the Football Association. Apparently, the booing was linked because Liverpool in the 1980s argued they had a very bad time during the recessions under Margaret Thatcher's government, so they think they're booing the establishment. Well, she wasn't there. She's been dead since 2013. All they were doing was booing the future king and effectively our Queen.
Yeah. Yeah,
and their mums, they should be really ashamed of themselves.
Yeah,
actually.
and you know that Prince William is a sensitive soul as well.
Yeah.
You know he won't have liked
He's a nice
that.
guy.
Yeah, he's a nice he's a human being at the end of the day.
Looks
No one
good,
wants
does
to
his
be
job
booed.
well.
Yeah.
Would they have done it if Kate was with him?
Yeah.
Who knows? Probably.
Would they have been a bit more chivalrous?
I don't know.
I doubt it. I doubt it. By the FA Cup final at 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon after a boozy day, they'll have been on the beers since 11.
I lived near one of the tubes they get on to go to the football. It smelt like a brewery in the street. That's before they'd got anywhere near.
It didn't smell of a urinal.
Anywhere near Wembley. No, that would have been later. That would have been later. That's when it's time to lock yourself in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that feeling towards Margaret Thatcher that they were allegedly complaining about also being seen over the weekend.
Yeah, look, a fantastic statue unveiled of the first woman Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher. It's bronze. It's been put in Grantham, which is where she was brought up. She famously lived above Alf Roberts, her father's grocer's shop. What an amazing, humble beginning for the person I would argue is our greatest peacetime Prime Minister. She won 3 elections, but within an hour, they were lobbing eggs at it. Now, they've got the right to protest, but I must say, the first protester who chucked an egg, 59-year-old director of an art gallery, of a university art gallery. God help the students, if that's the sort of example he sets. Shouldn't he grow up? 59?
Yeah.
I mean, pathetic. That's what you expect young people to do. Fine, throw an egg. They threw eggs at her in real life. And actually, she wouldn't be complaining because she said that's part of political discourse. But I do think somebody who teaches students about art ought to learn about there's better ways to express yourself than lobbing an egg at a statue of a national icon.
Yeah, there's a legitimate debate over Thatcher's legacy, but not to, express it through eggs.
They were going to put it in Parliament Square, but it was decided, but in their wisdom, that she is too divisive a figure and might upset people. So put her in her hometown, and most people interviewed there said, great to see her, didn't agree with her politics, but she's a unique figure, first woman Prime Minister, longest-serving 20th century Prime Minister, and won 3 elections.
But the question that springs to my mind is whether or not the Colston statue and the ruling that said that basically criminal damage wasn't, has this legitimised it? If you don't agree with what a statue represents, you now legally allowed to deface it?
It's so important that appeal is heard and that verdict of that jury is overturned, because I don't think vandalism of a public object is legitimate. It's not a part of legitimate public discourse. It's law-breaking. That's what it is. And you know what will happen already. There are going to be people going to try and pull down Mrs Thatcher's statue. Remember the one that was unveiled in Westminster some years ago? Somebody knocked her head off within days, and she was alive then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But she took it in good nature, as you'd expect of her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to celebrate. Well, I mean, it's similar to the Queen, another woman with a long and successful career.
Yeah, and the Queen liked her. There was all these suggestions that she didn't. The Queen was at Margaret Thatcher's 80th birthday party. Lovely story. It was in the Mountain Oriental in Knightsbridge. I'd got in there, of course you do. So Mrs T disappears. The helicopter comes in. Philip and the Queen have flown in from somewhere. She does a curtsy deep to the ground, because she always did a deep curtsy. And I went back into the hotel. She was already in her confused days. The Queen walked in with her, holding her hand.
Aww,
How nice is that?
lovely.
And you could see a real affection between the Queen, Prince Philip, and their first woman Prime Minister. A real, genuine affection.
Yeah.
And remember, the Queen has only been to the funeral of 2 of her 14 Prime Ministers, Winston Churchill and Mrs Thatcher.
Yeah, well, they must have had. They would have had a lot of chats together over a long time.
And Paul, they're the same generation. There's about a year's difference
And
in age.
female leaders,
Yeah.
breaking the mould,
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
Both of them having to put up with people like me saying, "Oh, what is she wearing?" Which is something we never say about male politicians.
Well, we don't know. Maybe we should.
Or Prince Charles. But all women in public life have to put up with that.
Yeah, I know. Tell
As
me
you
about
know,
it.
Isabel. What's Paul wearing? Should we discuss his suit?
Looks
No,
lovely.
please don't.
Very well
I'll
dressed,
go on.
very
I've got
well
it from my
dressed. But you
brother's
missed the
wedding, if you
memo.
must know.
Very
It's
nice.
M&S, actually.
Very
yeah.
smart.
Yeah, very design.
Next
yeah,
time
thanks.
we need to coordinate ties and suits. I just want to ask you about Eurovision.
I was glued to it.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it?
Glued to it.
It's great, wasn't it?
I think it was the best result. So Sam Ryder won on the juries, and they were always going to win with the popular vote, Ukraine. So first and second, and a great snub to Putin. 200 million people watching that, and the really delicious part of it too, France and Germany last and second last. Good, because they've done nothing to help Ukraine, and we've been there.
Germany almost got 0 point, didn't they?
Almost got it. I was praying that they would. Yeah. So that will teach them for giving no help to Ukraine. They offered guns and rifles and missiles. They've sent helmets.
Do you think then that this is, second place was basically a nod to Boris Johnson and his foreign policy, or
There's no doubt politics plays a
Brexit's
part.
distant
We know
history
it. We
now.
know it does, and we've been punished, haven't we, sometimes, because we've had some pretty reasonable songs and still got nothing. But it was a good song, to be fair.
It was
Sam
a good
Ryder.
song. I
really
really
good
enjoyed
song.
it.
But I think there was a lot of politics there, and it played in our favour this time. And Mr Macron will be so upset, won't he?
Yeah.
And so will Putin, because the whole of Russia will have watched that Eurovision song.
Yeah, France gave us 12 points as well.
They did.
Didn't they?
And so did Ireland. So that's augurs well for the negotiations in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I felt a slight sensitivity. It felt a little bit like the Euro 2020 final for me afterwards, because we were close, but didn't quite get there. And I know Ukraine won, and that was great.
We didn't want to beat Ukraine.
No. Well, no, it would have been.
Right.
It was a win-win.
The 2020 football, was that the one that ended in penalties?
Yes.
My partner and I went to watch that at a friend's house, and as we were walking home, he said, do we have to watch another football match? And I said, it's taken us 56 years to get to that final. It'll take another 56 years. So the answer is no, we're done.
Well, we'll find out later this year. The World Cup's on. Might hopefully.
Oh, just
go on
don't let
better.
there be any penalties. I can't bear it.
Yeah,
I can't bear it. Such a silly way to decide the outcome of a tournament.
Of course it is.
Anyway, I can't believe all the topics we've covered there, all the way down to football. Fantastic. Lovely to see you.
Yeah,
and
good to see you
again
too.
next week.
Right, 9:14, which means I think it's time for this.
It's on your doorstep this morning. We're in the borough of Wandsworth. Made the headlines, of course, South London, because just a few weeks ago, in the local elections, the Conservatives lost it for the first time in over 4 decades.
Yeah, our reporter, Alice Porter, is now in Putney. Alice, what's it like there, and who are you meeting?
Hello there, good morning. Yeah, I've just come north of the river and the sun is out. It is absolutely beautiful sunshine. But I thought maybe it's time for me to have some food. So I've come to a fantastic restaurant called Putney Pies. And I know for a fact that Isabel has been here before and had some very good nights. So I thought I might come along and see what it's all about. Hello, good morning. You're live on GB News. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Matt. I'm the operations partner at Putney Pies here, but please do come in. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Now, how long have you had this lovely place for?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, this is absolutely beautiful and prime spot just with the river just going past.
Of course, yeah. River Thames.
Now, how's business been? Because obviously we know hospitality's been really impacted with COVID. I mean, how are you sort of finding things?
It's fine, but we have lost quite a bit of turnover. Our prices have had to go up, obviously, because of the suppliers, everything, fuel prices, ingredients prices, right across the board, it's all gone up at least 20 to 30%. We've had to put our prices up to cover that as well. Staff costs are very high now as well, because there's a shortage of labour, staff.
And you're struggling to recruit. I mean, sort of how many sort of staff are you sort of missing at the moment?
Probably down about 20% and what we would normally have, yeah. And it's a struggle to find the right staff. A lot of that's to do with Brexit, where a lot of the lovely Eastern European and Polish staff members went back home and haven't returned. So that's impacted greatly on us.
Yeah, because I mean, you've had this place for 10 years. I mean, it's such a lovely location, and people can't sort of see. But below here, we've got this amazing sort of vaults where people can, eat and drink and have a great time. But I mean, for someone who's been working in the area for a decade, I mean, you must have seen some quite serious changes.
Yeah. There is trade's still good on the high street and down off the high street here in Lower Richmond Road, but there have been great changes. We haven't really suffered midweek, basically Tuesday through to Tuesdays and Wednesdays are a bit quieter than they were before. Yeah, we used to have quite a good trade. That's dropped away quite drastically, but the weekends are still fantastic.
Well, I am here to give you a bit of custard because I understand there is a pie for me to try. Is that right?
I might have one somewhere.
Yes, I told you there was some food for me to have. Oh, here we go. It's not too early for lunch. Great. What have we got here? Okay, knife and fork just coming. Lovely. What kind of pie is this?
It's steak and ale pie, that one, yeah.
Steak and ale pie. Lovely. Right. Thank you very much. Let's give it a go. Okay, this is going to be... Oh, my God. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, God, lovely. Oh.
Thank you.
What's in it?
Oh, Isabel, I can see why you come here.
What flavour is it, Alice?
What flavour is it?
Steak and ale pie, that one, isn't it?
Steak and ale pie.
Oh, classic.
There you go. Good, that's for my breakfast. Never too early.
Yeah.
Never too early. Well, top tip for you, Alice. Downstairs is quite the nightclub. I've not eaten in there, but it's a good night out downstairs in Putney Pies. It has to be said.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, next time you're here, Isabel, I'll have to come with you.
Yeah.
There you go, dancing and pies. The pies have it. Thank you, Alice. Really appreciate your time this morning. And thank you to your guest. Fantastic venue at Putney Pies, where you can have a pie and then go dancing straight after.
Dance it off. Essential. Yeah, exactly. Look, stay with us. Coming up after the break, we've got all the showbiz news. We've got the newly engaged Ellie Phillips. She's got the latest on that Doctor Who reunion. That's straight after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Jubilee, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Jubilee, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Time to take a look at all the latest showbiz news with our reporter Ellie Phillips. And love is in the air, Ellie. I can feel it.
It's all there.
Congratulations.
Thank you
just
so
on a
much.
personal note, before we get into it, we can't just skip over this. Just hold up your finger to
I don't
the
know what I'm
world.
holding it to.
There you go.
There you go. In on 9.
There we go.
Boy done good. Boy done
He
good.
did very, very well, yes. So very, very happy indeed.
Yes, in Versailles.
Oh, there,
on the
look
steps of
there.
Versailles.
In
There you are.
Versailles. So we were at it's called the Temple of Love. The Monument of Love in the gardens in the Palace of Versailles. On Saturday, surprise weekend in Paris, and he was
Bended knee, the lot.
bended knee, the whole shebang. Really amazing, speech. I was in tears.
What's
I
your
cried.
fiance's name?
Rob. Rob
Oh,
D.
well done, Rob.
Yeah, congratulations,
Good job.
Rob.
Good job.
Yep, well
lovely
done.
news. Well, all smiles for you and all smiles for Her Majesty last night. And great to see her up and about and looking really well and fit and strong.
Looked incredible, had a great time, clearly, from what we saw. And the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations kicked off in earnest last night with the first major TV event. It was this equestrian show with 500 horses and, of course, loads of stars are there.
Yeah.
It was all at Windsor Castle. Dame Helen Mirren was on stage. She played Queen Elizabeth I, and Omi Jalali, he played the Herald. So they did this incredible performance in these elaborate costumes. Damian Lewis, he opened one of the performances. He was on stage. There's also Tom Cruise. He was there opening a segment. Bridgerton's Anjoa and Doe, and Alan Titchmarsh.
I was going to say, this is the only event where you'll get Tom Cruise and Alan Titchmarsh together, right?
I think he's been comparing all the show for the last few days.
Exactly. So it's all these bits, and then there were some amazing musical performances as well. Gregory Porter, Catherine Jenkins, and Kiala Settle. So amazing way to open it. And there's so much more to come because this is the first of a host of celebrations happening for Her Majesty. There is one taking place on June 5th. We've got the bank holiday weekend, and that's going to be a parade. News just out is that there are going to be a host of dames involved in that are going to travel through this procession in Jaguars.
Okay.
Dames confirmed include Joan Collins, Arlene Phillips and Twiggy, and they're going to be amongst 150 national treasures and household names who are going to take part in
Has
that.
Eamonn mentioned at all that he's one of the national treasures?
He's one of the national
he's
treasures.
mentioned that a
Of
few
course he
times.
is.
He's very excited. He's going to be on a bus.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I hope
as
he
a
does the
national
proper wave when he does it as well, like the
We'll
round
practice
wave.
it.
Oh,
We'll
yes,
get
yes,
it.
yes.
We'll get-
Exactly.
I said to him he's got to do some live broadcasting into GB News from there, but he said he's going to be quite busy being a national treasure.
Oh, that takes up a lot of effort, I'm sure.
All right, where else should we go?
Well, speaking of national treasures,
yes.
Eurovision.
Oh.
Sam Ryder, he needs to be doing the wave thing and a bit of a national treasure himself
It wouldn't
now.
surprise me if he was added in there as a last-minute addition to it. I mean, why not? He did so well, did us so proud. Absolutely incredible at the weekend. I did actually make my now fiancé go back to the hotel with me so I could watch the end of Eurovision.
Yes, I do. Yeah, I will
do.
now.
Eurovision's on, babe. Got priorities. And something that I think puts everything into context. Obviously, Ukraine won. The rap group Kalush Orchestra, they won, which is amazing. They are now back in Ukraine because obviously if you're a male between 18 and 60 in Ukraine, you have to legally be in the country to fight the war in Russia. They were given special permission to leave, the six-piece rap band. They're now back in Ukraine already after winning in Turin, and they're back on the front line.
Yeah,
Wow.
Unbelievable.
To go from that to then, enlisting and fighting, wow.
But it must give everyone such a boost back there to know that,
of course.
Everyone voted for them, everyone's behind them. So that must be really nice and hopefully uplifting everyone's spirits there as well.
Yeah, do you think it's going to be in Kiev next year?
I hope so. I hope it'll be somewhere in Ukraine. If not, I think they will put everything into having it somewhere else under their banner.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying in the UK, have it in the UK instead.
I think it'd be amazing if we could host it.
Yeah.
I would be there.
Yeah, 100%.
Well.
Look, we're almost out of time, but I just want to finish on this story about one of the Kardashians, Kourtney, the original, the firstborn. And I've just been catching up on this latest series, I have to say, and I wasn't, just from following it in the media and the press in the last year since they've been off air, I wasn't sold on the Kourtney and Travis relationship. I didn't really get it. And now I get it.
Get
Having
it.
seen the show, I actually think they're the sweetest couple.
I think you look at him full of tattoos and think, oh gosh, you know, he's going to be a certain way. He's the sweetest guy. He's lovely. They are finally married, husband and wife, officially done the deed.
Her first marriage, which is unusual for a Kardashian.
Exactly, the first one. They legally did it. It was just her grandma and his dad that were in attendance at a courthouse in Santa Barbara. This was yesterday. They had this fake wedding in Vegas like a month ago, which was their practice run, and they're going to have a big, huge wedding in Italy coming up as well. So they're pulling out all the stops. One here, one there, one everywhere. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Good luck to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck to them, I guess.
Yeah.
And have you guys set a date?
Well, no, we literally, it was 2 days ago. So
Oh, right, okay,
we're just
yeah.
in a bubble of happy right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely. God, that's good news.
A bubble of happy and
good to finish on
quite
good
the
news.
rock.
Quite the rock.
Quite the rock.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Ellie, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
in.
guys.
And yeah, congratulations again. And we'll see you very soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellie.
That's all we've got time for today. We'll be back tomorrow from 6 o'clock. Up next, The Briefing with Tom Harwood.
Yep. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking wet at times with rain or showers moving northwards across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Well, zooming down to the southwest at lunchtime, and we'll see a mix of sunny spells and scattered showers. The showers possibly could be on the heavy side in places. The southeast will also see a mix of sunny spells and showers. In the sunshine, though, it will be feeling warm and quite humid. The showers may be a little more frequent across Wales, though, with a risk of some heavy and possibly thundery showers around. Moving east into the Midlands, and there'll be more in the way of cloud around this lunchtime, although southern areas will gradually brighten up. Temperatures there will be reaching 18 or 19 Celsius. Skies will also be rather dull across northern England, with some areas of heavy rain around, and it'll also